We're going to begin our meeting with a thought by Commissioner Settlemeyer, and then we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Bailey.
Good evening. As we begin, I want to acknowledge that the topics we consider, especially those involving growth and change, can feel personal. I've been involved in some personal ones lately, so they definitely should. Land use decisions affect homes, neighborhoods, and the quality of life of our community. Planning is about stewardship. The decisions we make regarding land use, housing, roads, open space, they will shape North Ogden for decades to come. So our role is not simply to approve or deny proposals, but to help shape a community we're proud to pass on to the next generation. So I just hope tonight that we can work together, and I think there's going to be some difficult conversations tonight, and looking forward to hearing the community's thoughts on this and making sure we're making the right decisions for North Ogden. Thanks.
Thank you.
All rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we have Commissioner Gardner present, Bailey, Swanson, Settlemeyer, with Chair Watson excused for this meeting tonight. So we're going to move on to consent agenda item number 2, which is action and consideration to approve the February 18th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, which is ex parte communications or conflict of interest to disclose.
I have one for tonight. So on item, should I get the right one here? Number 9 for the, I'm going to call it just the Randall property. I was part of, in the past, before joining the community, I've been part of a neighborhood group that was in opposition of that, because there's also one that was behind my property. So I just want to bring that up, that in the past I've been in opposition of that with neighborhoods. So
I have one for the Ben Lomond Fitness agenda. I'll actually be
Make sure you're speaking to the mic.
for the Ben Lomond Fitness agenda. I'm the architect and I'll likely be presenting.
Okay, so we'll excuse you from, any votes or actions on that item for Commissioner Bailey. And then Commissioner Settlemeyer, I don't believe your conflict of interest needs any kind of excusal from discussion and action on that item, unless, is there any disagreement from the rest of the commission on that?
No.
Bill, okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to administrative item number 4, which is for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. I do want to encourage us, if we're here for the Randall property rezone, please hold your comments. We want to hear from you, but just when that item comes up. I do realize it's a ways down our agenda. We're going to try to move in a pretty efficient manner to get there. So if we can hold comments for that item, but if there are any other public items, comments for items not on the agenda, we'd invite you to come up, and I just encourage you to limit those comments to 5 minutes or less.
I'll be real brief. Kevin Burns, North Ogden, and I'm apologize, but I'm going to make a comment about the Randall property, and it's going to be that I don't know what's going to happen tonight. It feels like deja vu all over again, but the developers that you have here tonight reached out to a group of us and met with us. A really good exchange of information. We had a great conversation with them 2 nights ago. It is the most productive that any of the developers have been with the citizenry, and appreciate that. Learn from them, and whoever comes back, send them their way for an example of how to properly do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. If you'll just state your name and city.
My name is Kent Williams, and I'm a resident of North Ogden. This is not about any particular property, and it's basically to address the narrow roads that we're getting so excited about. I'd just like to share a few thoughts that I have. I'm a contractor, and I pour a lot of cement for a lot of people. I deal with different size roads all the time. One of the bullet points that I had was when you share parking, you can only park on one side of the road. What does that look like for your neighbor that has to park in front of your yard? Pouring cement all the time. People are fighting over parking, me trying to park in front of their house. So that's just one point. The other one is removing the snow. My driveway is 265 feet long, about 12 feet wide, and it widens out. I've been here for 13 years, and I push the snow down my driveway, and I get, on a good year, consistently 10, 12-foot snowbanks, and I have a place for it. But these little narrow lots, I'm not sure where you're putting that snow. You can't really push it on people's yards. If you have a sidewalk on one side, typically they leave room, and so that narrows the street down. So that's just another item that I had there. The other item is, for 20 years, I backed my Bobcat into my driveway when I was in Salt Lake. Normal sized street, but when people park across the street, it make it very difficult for me to do that. And doing it every night, I was pretty good at it. So parking an RV in these narrow streets, I don't see how that's even going to work. So it's just another thought. One of the things when I pour concrete, I pull up with my Bobcat. I need about 75 feet to unload my Bobcat, and I take up a lot of room. So if you're servicing these little lots or narrow streets, that's a consideration. The other thing is, for me to meet the wastewater management that I do here in North Ogden, and North Ogden's actually called me numerous times, hasn't given me an award, but they've told me, we see what you're doing, we appreciate it. So that being said, I have to put a tub for the cement truck to wash out into. I have a tub for the concrete pump to wash into. Then I have a 450-gallon tank to put water into. That's what is required for me to meet those things. I have no idea where you'd put all that stuff if you don't have any kind of right of way to put stuff like that in. And then the other problem is if you get a cement truck and a pump truck in there, I just don't see how that all really works. And so that's just a comment I have about these narrow streets. It sounds like a really great item. And the last item that I have is everybody talks about how it saves the city money. And that could be true, but at whose expense? Because the buyers, they're buying these lots. You do not give them any break on their taxes. They're paying for that maintenance of the road twice because they got an HOA they got to pay into, plus they're paying into taxes, just like I pay stormwater. I don't have any stormwater on my property, but I pay it, and I pay the connection fee. Just how things work. So that's all I had, is some comments for you guys to kind of digest some of this. These real cute little narrow streets they look real nice and they talk safety and all that stuff, but the reality is when it all comes down to the nuts and bolts of using them every day, it's a really difficult situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move to item number 5, which is consideration and recommendation regarding an administrative application, which is a site plan approval for the Ben Lomond Fitness Building and site plan improvements located at approximately 1912 North 400 East. And our presenter is Ryan Nunn.
Thank you, planning commissioners. This item is coming back to the planning commission from our meeting from a couple weeks ago. To kind of, I guess, just review a little bit of it. This is there's an existing building on this corner lot. They're looking to improve the site, have an addition added on to, and to continue the existing use as a fitness center. That is a permitted use in our Southtown commercial area. In regards to the new structure, it is meeting our setbacks. They are requesting the 0-foot setback off of the front, off of Washington, which our code states planning commission may require. So they would like to have planning commission approve that 0-foot setback. The other thing is in regards to their site plan is they are meeting building percentage and all the other needed percentages. One that, I don't believe we discussed previously was they are just short of the 10% landscaping requirement. On their plans, they showed that they had a 9.8. Staff wanted to make planning commission aware of this and to consider approving it at that 9.8, since it's such a minor difference. And then finally, with the changes they made, one was they are meeting the window requirement along the frontage. One thing that changed was the doors. So they don't have a door directly facing Washington, but on their northwest corner, they do have that public entrance. Staff wanted to have planning commission weigh in on that and to consider allowing it to meet that requirement. It's something planning commission has done before with the recent America First credit union branch, where they had a corner entrance, but it was facing internally, and this is very similar. And so to have planning commission consider that and we recommend that being approved. Finally, when it was tabled or postponed, I don't know, John, if we could pull up those new elevations. So the applicant to meet the architectural features, they increased the amount of windows. And then along the north and south, they do have a window and a door with awnings. And then on the rear, that's where they have some additional garage doors, and awnings, and then as well as a mural that they're planning to have painted on the rear there. Staff's opinion was that met the needed suggestions from planning commission to bring back. Finally, there's still for planning commission to consider, we do have streetscape standards for Washington that includes not just the 10-foot sidewalk, but also street trees. And really just whether that's something that we want to have included. I do know on their site plan, I believe they have 2, or on their landscaping plan, excuse me. And then the other item was, or I guess the other 2, just as a refresher, was that a trash enclosure may be needed in the future. From what we learned from the applicant, the one that's on their site is shared with several of the businesses. Staff wanted planning commission to consider for the future of this property where a potential trash enclosure should be located. Currently, it's not really needed, but to have that kind of live with the property, a potential enclosure could be helpful. And then as well, the parking requirements, it doesn't meet the parking standards, but because of the location and the amount of parking in the area, staff's recommendation was to have some type of written agreement. And then I believe that was everything. And so I'm happy to help answer questions. And then
Thank you, Ryan. Does anyone on the planning commission have questions for Ryan?
I have one, Ryan.
yes,
So it mentions somewhere in this that there's 2 site amenities needed for the street. So that's in addition to landscaping, right? So like
it
benches,
is.
tables, drinking
It,
fountains.
sorry. If
No,
you're done.
okay, you're good.
Yes, so it's in our code, everything along Washington and 2700 or 2600 north. For every 50 feet, they have to have 1 side amenity. that's that's been permitted as anything as an enhanced landscaping to the decorative light poles to,
And
planting pots,
is there
or
anything,
bench.
was there anything on the plan? I want to make sure I didn't miss it. I didn't see
I,
anything.
no, there would still be, something needs to be proposed still. And that can be, or I believe, it's something that we usually try to approve at the time of building permit, what those can be. And like I said, it's been enhanced landscaping along that frontage, some additional potted plants or a
Mhm.
bench.
Thank
as
you.
counted.
Ryan, those amenities, are they to be on private property or in the public right of way?
Mhm.
Because I think the building's at a 0-foot setback,
Mhm.
so it would have to be on public property.
I know most recently, the majority that we've approved along Washington have been on the private property side, but connected to the sidewalk. Except the street lights, the decorative street lights have been on the public.
Haven't
Right
some
of way.
previous projects put in like benches?
Exactly,
like
like a
that?
bench. Yeah.
Okay.
Has there ever been is a bike rack considered one? Because it's a fitness center, I was just thinking like bike rack or something like that.
Yes, a bike rack, actually, for example, the America First Credit Union
Okay.
had a bike rack added to meet that requirement.
And we do have the applicant here who can come up and also give us more information if we don't have more questions for Ryan.
Ryan, I noticed on the landscaping, the street trees, there is at least one mature tree on the corner. And it's shown in the pictures. But what is our standard? How many trees would they need street tree wise?
I don't know if there's a specific number, or if it's per distance. That I don't know off the top of my head. That does
Is it like
remind
every
me,
50 feet
feet.
or
I think it's every
50 feet or
50
something?
I'll have to double check their code.
Okay.
yeah,
And their frontage was how much?
the frontage, I think they're right at like 100 or just over.
Okay.
So it was just the two.
And there would be none required on the, what is that, 1900?
Um, I don't believe so, no. Or that would be for planning commission to discuss if there's,
But our standards, do they require that on the 1900?
I don't
currently?
think so. It's mostly on the Washington
Okay.
streetscapes.
All right.
Yeah.
We'd like to invite the applicant to come up.
Chad Bailey, North Ogden, Utah. I want to address quickly that we are short on the landscape requirement, but I do want to bring up the fact that currently it's 0%. So we're doing our best. And then I do think we would likely for the side amenity right there on the southwest corner would propose a bike rack, at least one that it's a good corner for the parade too. So I think it's a double whammy, and I would be less or a little more hesitant to do much in the right of way or on front, just because that seems like a nice public place to put people at least once a year. So
Would that location provide easy access for those using the gym to use the bike rack?
yeah, and it would just be right there right above the landscape on the light gray area. We would
Right there.
place one there.
Okay.
So it would be for, it would most likely be a majority used by the patrons of the gym, but someone could easily park there and go to Jones or whatnot. And then in terms of trees in the park strip, we were just planning on working with staff to determine how many we need there. We for sure need one. We might need two.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
What about the agreement with the adjacent property for parking? Has that been discussed or considered?
Well, the adjacent property right now, it's one owner. So putting together an agreement, we can do, and it was again, something we were gonna have as a requirement, working with staff as we move towards building permit. Right now, it's one owner and there's going to be some sort of transfer to the gym. And to do that transfer, it's going to require a shared parking agreement outside of even this application.
Okay.
I have, John, can you scroll down to where it's got the north side of the property? Okay, another one, maybe another one. There's another image that shows right here, the
Yeah,
awning.
right there.
You think those awnings are gonna get hit in the drive path? The ones that are hanging over that north side? That's a concern I saw.
There's already awnings, so
Okay.
we're kind of, they're blue, so we're getting rid of.
I saw that and I was like, that's right. in the
Yeah, I mean,
drive
I
path.
kind of, when I was listening to the meeting a little bit, the existing building didn't get as much attention on the previous drawing, so the comments from last time were on the north and south side, we're showing, those are existing windows. They have a big blue bubble awning,
Okay.
and then we're gonna, I mean, those would work, but we don't want to keep them, so we're proposing a uniform, there's gonna be 3 or 4, maybe 5 around the different sides, and some might be wider, but they'll all look the same. And then I will add, sometimes you want to gripe about this process, but I will say if we can look at the west elevation, I don't know if there's a 3D image. Maybe the next page. So if you look at this west elevation, I think it looks a lot better, and I do want to say that we put in some work there, but that directly comes from a little bit of the pushback, but also the requirement of that 50% glass. So again, I just wanted to sort of point it out that sometimes it's following the rules for rules' sakes, but in this scenario, I think it made that facade a lot better.
So on the northwest corner and the southwest corner, are those roll-up doors or?
Yeah.
And what's the purpose of those?
So on
outdoor
the
space?
on the north side, in the renderings, if you go back up a page, I don't know who's controlling. We kind of have like they're gonna fence that in outside the roll-up doors, and they have like a sled track where you strap weights to your waist and pull and push and do all of that. So that would be an activity going on the north side, and then south side it would be opening it up just for fresh air and whatever activities can go on indoor outdoors. The existing building right now does get like warm in the summer. The new mechanical system is hoping to improve that, but with these doors, a little bit of the passive design thought is that there's 2 doors on the east side, and with these roll-up doors, they're there really early in the morning. And in June, July, getting there really early in the morning, 50, 60-degree weather, you can flush out the building and cool it down.
Well, we've seen, this proposal at the last meeting, and I just want to thank you and your team for the work you put in terms of improving the proposal, but also just the improvement altogether. Like, thank you. We're looking at the existing building here featured, and this is just a great, I think, upgrade for the community. So just thank you to, you and your team for, I know you guys got an RDA grant to help accomplish some of this, but this is awesome. So with that being said, thank you for your time. Are we good to, okay. So thank you so much. So we'll open it up to discussion among the planning commission.
I like the changes. I think
We could entertain a motion.
Well, I have one
Oh, sorry.
question.
Go ahead, noting.
And I was
Talking to the mic.
sorry. I had one question, maybe it's for John. The seasonal McFarland's corn selling place right there, do they operate under a permit?
Yes, they get a temporary business permit through us. and
They'll
the
have to
business.
find another location because it's going to cover this parking area.
So it takes that into consideration, the available parking on site and if there's a question, it can be escalated to the planning commission for review. And
Okay.
Ryan might have more information because he's been involved in that. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. You were just adjusting your glasses. Okay. So, but there is a process and they look at parking for the temporary business as well as what they're using.
Okay.
I move that we grant approval for the Ben Lomond Fitness Building with site improvements located at approximately 1912 North and 400 East, subject to the conditions of the staff report.
Check.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so we will go ahead and take a vote on that. Oh, sorry.
Should we modify that motion to include the reduced landscaping at 9.8%?
Yes, I would go ahead and add that addition to the motion that we are accepting the reduced landscaping at 9.8% in light of the just location of this property and some of the challenges it has. So I think, do we need to second that again? Okay, thank you. And so we will go ahead and proceed with a vote. Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemeyer.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That moves us to item number 6, which is consideration and recommendation regarding an administrative application, preliminary plat approval for one lot with 134 townhome units at Orchard Bend at North Ogden Phase 2, located at approximately 1637 North Washington Boulevard. Our presenters Ryan Nunn.
Thank you. So this is the preliminary plat. This is honestly very simple. This project first came to the city a couple years ago with its annexation. And then this is they've already had one phase. This is phase 2, and which is everything between the 300 East and they have one part that touches Washington. Where these are specifically for rent, it's all under one lot. So there's not much to present on other than it meets our code. They are dedicating 300 East as a public right of way. During our TRC, our technical review committee, there was they've worked closely with the Public Works about some improvements with a water line and other things, and those have all been resolved. And so staff recommends approval of this subdivision with the dedications, subject to those needed improvements specified in our memo and our engineer's report. And I'm happy to take questions, and then we do have our applicants here as well.
Okay. I've got a few questions for you, Ryan. Mud Creek crosses this area. Do we know where it crosses on this phase?
I don't believe it crosses this phase, so just north on the Severing property, they piped it down their portion of 300 East. And so I do know that this project, they are picking that up and sending it west. So it
Okay.
doesn't, other than going through the 300 East, it
It doesn't
won't-
affect the
won't
property.
affect where the buildings are or anything.
You mentioned the developer was working with the city on a water main issues. You said that's all been resolved. Is the city participating in that water main?
I don't fully know. It was a discussion between our culinary water, and maybe John knows.
The idea is that as that loop is designed that the city would essentially front the cost except for what is West State's obligation, and then get that reimbursed from the other property owners as they develop. I want to say it was like 70 grand or 120 for the project. And that's just to provide the fire service to this
So
area.
they've upsized it beyond their.
It's actually just adding a loop across Washington
Just a loop.
Boulevard.
Okay,
Yeah. I don't believe there's an upsize.
okay. I noticed that the sewer had been enlarged over what was originally proposed. I don't know if that was because of capacity issues.
I don't know either. It might be a good question for the developer, or it could be just slope.
It could have been the slope, because I didn't have all the details there. I noticed that on the stub for 300 east there, we don't have any sewer stubbed out to our boundary, and that's generally a standard condition. Is it some elevation issues? Do we know?
I'm not certain. So the property to the south is still in the county, I believe.
Right, but generally we stub it out so future connections can make those issues. So that may be something our city engineer looks at to see if that
not-
would,
I'm not sure if that was called out in the engineer's report.
no. it
Unfortunately,
wasn't.
it was all under the previous city engineer, so where those discussions happened.
Yeah. And the same thing would apply to the water main too, right there, because there's no utility stubbed out. One other question, the parking that we're counting, we're including the garage parking?
I think that's a good question for the site plan, if you wanted to hold on
Oh,
to that one.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, this is the subdivision, sorry.
Okay, so are there more questions regarding the plat approval specifically? Because we do have the next item is the site plan. Are you good? Okay. Okay, do we have the developer who wanted to present on the preliminary plat approval piece? Okay.
Well, some of these, I guess, would be site plan questions.
Okay,
Right.
we can kind of, yeah.
I can do it in whatever order you want.
No, you're good.
Just related to the subdivision right now, so.
You want to do, okay,
yeah.
so we'll do just does anyone have questions regarding this for the developer in terms of the plat approval with the subdivision? If not, is there anything you'd like us to know?
Well, no, that's the preliminary plat is pretty straightforward, but
Okay.
I'm happy
We'll
to.
bring you back up in 2 seconds here, then it sounds like they want to we'll stick to that. Okay, so any discussion? Okay, we'd entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve the preliminary plat approval for one lot with, I guess, 134 units in Orchard Bend at North Ogden Phase 2, located at approximately 1637 North Washington Boulevard.
I'll second that.
And good job, first motion, love it. Okay, any discussion before we take a vote? Okay, so Commissioner Gardner,
Yes,
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemyre,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that moves us to item number 7, which is consideration and recommendation regarding the administrative application for the site plan approval for Orchard Bend. And our presenter's Randon.
Okay, thank you. So this is more of the meat for this project. So the 134 townhomes proposed here all meet within so the zone of this project is R4 and it does have a development agreement. The within that development agreement, the project as a whole, all 3 phases was permitted 315 units. In phase 1, they had 49. And then in this one, they are proposing that 134. They are meeting the setback requirements specified in their development agreement, as well as the size, the 2-story size of the townhomes. Let's see. One thing I'd like to mention is in my report, I did have the area requirements from our 1113.4. I realize that's probably not applicable due to that permitted number of units for this project as a whole. So when you look at the project as a whole, they are permitted just over 15 units an acre. And so they are meeting that requirement. Through my review, they are meeting the landscape needed, and as well as the improvements along 300. One, I'm trying to make sure I have it as a condition. So one thing that came up in phase 1 that planning commission should consider was the type of vinyl. In the previous phase, planning commission felt comfortable having staff review and approve the vinyl, and so that would just be something to move on into this additional phase. And then there is a needed additional street light, a street pole light along 300 East. Our standards require one at every intersection or 600 feet. So that southernmost intersection would just need a streetlight added. I guess to just catch on to that parking requirement, that is determined what's in the development agreement. So there was a certain number of 2-bedroom units that only needed to provide 2 off-street parking stalls. The remainder 3-bedroom and 1-bedroom had specified they needed to have the off-street plus the guest, and having counted the units and the parking stalls, they are meeting what is required in the DA, the development agreement. But I'm happy to take any other questions, and then again, the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Questions for Ryan? Okay.
Ryan, I got another question.
Yes,
The private streets, I guess phase 3 hasn't been approved yet, correct?
correct.
We have utilities from this phase 2 that are going through phase 3 to get to phase 1. Are they going to be providing easements for those utilities in phase 3 with this phase 2?
Yes,
So
I'll
they
let
would,
Scott answer that.
yeah, so they would have to, and you did the preliminary plat, what you accepted is a 1-lot subdivision with the dedication of the public right of way, and that's essentially it. So moving to final plat would be all of your underground utilities, water, sewer, stormwater requirements, and at that point, we would have them do the dedication of whatever easements would be necessary across the other private property, which is themselves essentially to
Right.
get their utilities out. So that would be a plat, a component of the plat requirement when they record.
Okay. One other question. The length of 300 East, do we allow the private streets to function as our, let's say, turnaround areas? Because there's no turnaround bulb at the end of 300, and that length is quite long. So are we allowing private streets to function to allow for those turnarounds?
I'm hoping that's addressed in our TSC. If I remember, I believe that I know Ryan, our fire marshal, Ryan Barker, reviewed this and was comfortable with the fire access here.
Okay.
And we'll just,
Because if we didn't have any private streets off of that, that length would exceed our required and we'd have to have a temporary turnaround or something.
right, I know, previously there had been like a crash gate at the end of that private drive to Washington. But that was removed, but it was approved by our fire marshal to be sufficient.
Okay, we'd invite the developer back up one more time. Sorry about that, sir.
Travis Taylor. Okay, I'll go back. Mud Creek. So Mud Creek does flow through our third phase, which is between phase 1 and phase 2. So it'd be west of 300 east. Despite the name, the federal government considers that to be maybe the most pristine fishery in the United States. So we did go through the process with the Corps of Engineers to have that removed. There were a couple of little wetland slivers alongside the creek. So we worked with the Corps to get that removed. In order to get it removed, we had to go buy replacement wetlands. So now we'll just pick it up from the north as it comes out of the Severing property on 300 and we'll route it through on pipes. Some of that is in our phase 1 and then the rest of it will be in our phase 3, but none of it is in this phase.
But it will all be piped,
Yes,
correct?
yes. Yeah, we'll just pick up their pipe where they bought it through Severing. The sewer size, I think that was a debate in phase 1 on the sewer upsize. And it was because the staff had considered it to be the 6-inch stubs onto the 8-inch line to be an add-on after the fact. But when we talked about it, they were just fine with us putting in Ys as we were building the original line. So they didn't have an issue with it. So it went back to its original size. The sewer and water stub on the south end of 300, that property does drop off quite a bit. So the sewer really,
I thought it might be an elevation issue.
it's a serious elevation issue. And I believe that the city has had several conversations with the owner of that property and tried to work out some things and there was just no interest in doing anything, maybe even talking. I think there's
could
no
see
interest
the-
in talking.
I could see the sewer issue because of elevation.
Yeah,
Water, it's all pressurized, so
yeah.
that might be considered.
Yeah, we did talk through that at the beginning, but with the temperament there, it was just like, we'd rather just not have the dead end line. And if sometime in the next 30 or 40 or 50 years, if that property ever develops, they would just come in and grab it and take it from there. When there were 2 issues on the private streets, so I wasn't real clear, but when we'll do the plat, or when we do the CCNRs or on this, my typical MO is to just have a blanket easement over the entire property that just subtracts out any vertical structure. I've just found that to be easier than trying to define a narrow corridor. It's a little bit risky for us, but I've never had a problem with it because technically somebody could just come through and, rip through there, but we just have never had an issue. And coming back after the fact and working with Dominion or Rocky Mountain Power after that's done, it takes months and months to get it through their survey and legal department. So it's easier to just do a blanket. And then I thought that was a great point. If I got it right, some of phase 2 depends on phase 3 and we'll define those going through there. They'll extinguish when we replace them with the blanket. I did want to bring up something that we just learned here recently that's kind of brutal that I would like to be able to work with staff on, and that is Pineview, where they have in the past required 3 acre-feet of water to be dedicated for every irrigated acre, and you can just use that water. They have reduced that from 3 acre-feet per acre to 0.38. acre feet per acre. So it is like an 80, I calculated out, 86, 83%, 80, 87, a little over 87% reduction in the water that they'll allow you to use to irrigate with. And they say if you use 100% of your water in any year, they shut you off, they send you a fine, and you can't turn your water back on until you pay the fine. So it's serious, it's serious. But they do have a provision in the information that they sent out that says you can appeal to the board for things like commercial open space, things like that. So we're going to work with them. We're having our landscape architect calculate up the exact amount of water usage that what is in your packet would require. And then I think we're going to do a little more of an even balance of xeriscape right in front of each unit, and then we basically want to have grass where grass makes sense and where people are going to use the grass. And that we will work with their board to make an exception. It's going to be over the 0.38 in order to get there. But they did write that flexibility in. You just have to go ask permission. And so we're in that process. I think in general, like around the clubhouse area, in these courtyard areas, in these bigger areas, we certainly want to keep the grass. But there's space in front of everybody's unit that we don't really want sprinklers hitting their foundation. And so we'll modify this a little bit. I guess I'm asking if I can work with staff after this meeting and work with their board to come up with a happy medium.
Okay, any questions?
Commission, just so you know, we are aware of that change. I do know that like for Jordan Park, it's 0.38 per lot. And so they obviously have some flexibility built in, but I think that's something that we can do as a staff, if that's okay.
Seeing no questions, we thank you and
It's
we'll open it up. Oh, sorry, I do have a
Sorry.
question. I apologize.
John. Since it was brought up by a community member earlier about the roads, where's snow storage going to be at on this plan? I see a lot of parking, but I don't see a lot of snow push area.
There's not a lot of snow push area. There's areas between the buildings that we will push to. We'll monitor parking a little bit. I believe that we're over parked here. In fact, we expanded the width of these units to 22 feet to meet the state's requirement for an interior parking stall to be 10 by 20 clear space for each stall. So we have the two stalls inside the garage that are really two stalls, instead of maybe, miniature stalls. They're functional stalls. So we'll monitor that. And in some of our properties, we have designated parking as summer parking and winter parking. The last thing we want is for this project to have this reputation of, I got to move because I can't park. So we feel that we're adequately parked on all this and in fact have some surplus. And so areas where we can push into the landscape, we'll push into the landscape. Areas where we can't, we will designate as snow storage areas.
And these are all rental units, correct?
That's correct. So, and if that becomes a problem, we'll haul it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open up discussion amongst the planning commission. Thoughts about, obviously we have this condition of the staff report. It sounds like they need to add street lights for staff to review. Any questions or concerns about the idea that staff would approve any reduction or changes to maybe more water-friendly landscaping is needed based on water rights?
I think we ought to just let staff make some of those handles. One item that was brought up was the vinyl siding and I guess whether we want to allow staff to just approve those options.
In a previous phase, the commission went quite in depth on the discussion of the vinyl. And we brought up concerns of warping and also the fact that the modern vinyl is a lot more durable, and with those concerns bundled in with the previous phase, we felt there was adequate information for the developer and the builder to decide on a siding, vinyl or not, that met the durability requirements. So we could discuss it. We've had a lot of change on the planning commission, but it was something that we
put that
exhausted.
on
Yeah.
phase one.
Yes.
There was strong opinions, I think, on both sides, but ultimately that's the compromise we went with.
Okay.
Could we put that we want the same vinyl that's in phase one? Just,
I think that'd be,
that, if it's working over there and looks nice over there, I
Yeah.
drove by there last night.
I would say the same vinyl and recommendations as the previous phase.
Yeah, if you guys had that thought, you guys already worked through that.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
Going through it again.
I mean, because a little bit of a repeat, vinyl will last a long time on the north and on the east, the south and the west, that really starts to get hot and warped. And there were agreements that if vinyl starts to have an issue, that it would need to be replaced. But on the flip side, there's just a lot higher quality than what we're used to seeing like on our parents' houses growing up.
And then just for further context, like typically the city code doesn't allow for vinyl on these types of construction. So I had concerns about that, but there was some disagreement about whether this particular development agreement did allow for, because typically that's not in city code.
And we would have not approved it had they there was discussion of rental versus ownership, where an owner might let it get dilapidated and not be able to enforce it, and therefore we would have had to take a hard line. But since we're dealing with a singular owner,
Yeah.
it makes it a little easier for them to go in and do the work.
And that, on the snow removal piece too, that kind of under the same lines, it's one owner that owns all of these, and they obviously have a reputation they need to maintain. So
Yeah.
the vinyl and the snow, they don't want to be a property that nobody wants to
I
rent
mean,
from.
I guess we hope that the tenants would be driving before the city had to.
Correct. Yeah.
We could entertain a motion if,
I'll move that we approve the site plan approval for Orchard Bend at North Ogden Phase 2 townhomes located at approximately 1637 North Washington, including the working with staff recommendations regarding the vinyl that we had in phase 1, using the same materials in this phase, and also on the tweaks to the landscaping, working out with the water.
I'll second.
okay. We have a motion and a second, so we'll go ahead and move to a vote if no further discussion. Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemyre,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Which moves us to legislative item number 8, which is a public hearing consideration and recommendation on a legislative application to consider rezoning property at approximately 1650 North Washington Boulevard from manufacturing to community commercial Southtown along the frontage of Washington Boulevard. Our presenter on this item is Scott Hess.
I was taking notes for Ryan, so give me just 1 second to.
Yeah,
say things.
absolutely.
All right, thank you. So the first item tonight is for the property owner Terry Severing, being represented or working with Sean Strong as the developer for a consideration of a rezone that was done as part of an annexation back in 2023. So in 23, along Washington Boulevard and 1700 North, the city brought this property in under manufacturing specifically for the use of storage units. It came with a zoning code amendment and a general plan amendment to permit that particular use in this area, and is bound and controlled by a development agreement that specified the type of building to be constructed on the front with a specific commercial look, rock stucco mix that was very specific. The rest of the development agreement controlled the way the surrounding fencing looked around the storage units, its variations, a handful of those items, And this now is being bounded just by the phase that you consider for West States, phase 2. The applicant, after looking at their project in consideration of Washington Boulevard, has asked for the front portion of the property to be rezoned to commercial and maintain the central half or so, central 2/3 as manufacturing with the storage units. I think the main consideration for the Planning Commission to talk about with this is how that would affect the development agreement and what standard you would want the commercial building to be built to. If you go to just a standard commercial Southtown zoning, it would be kind of anything that goes in that zone. And staff's recommendation after reviewing the development agreement, which isn't overly specific, but just wants a higher end type of product or something that's mainly rock, brick, stucco, finer materials essentially, our request as staff would be to hold that commercial development to the same standard in that consideration. Otherwise, staff is supportive of the rezone, as this would convert the use from really a property tax generating process or a building to a sales tax potential generating commercial use on the front of Washington Boulevard at one of our very few stoplight controlled intersections that we will ever have. With that, we do have the applicant representative here if they'd like to comment, or I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Scott?
Scott, I have a question for you. The commercial property, the size of it, I know we're not looking at a site plan on where they'll have access, but we dealt with a driveway elimination across the street for the fueling station. This would get into a similar situation that is very close. So are they planning on maybe using 385 East?
Yep, and to orient everybody, that would be the first private street west off of Washington
Yeah.
Boulevard that accesses into Village at Prominence Point. Right now, there's nothing commercial right there. The alignment of the previous site plan with the storage units and 385 was really close, and again, would be kind of limited to that same distance requirement back from Washington Boulevard. So the likelihood is that the site plan would have a singular access that would probably cross through the manufacturing into the 0.83 commercial piece. And then staff has recommended that there be a cross-access easement across that property to the parcels south. If those ever annex and go to commercial, that there would be potential for a through access, because the likelihood of UDOT granting an additional access off of Washington Boulevard is extremely low.
Okay, that answers my question. Thanks.
Scott, you have a question? Is this working? Yep, there it goes. If in undoing the development agreement that was done for this area, doesn't it undo it for the entire area? Wouldn't it require us to, because the development agreement, I mean, I was on council at the time, and we put a lot of work into that, included what would now be phase 2 and phase 3, the storage/commercial. That whole thing was going to be storage. I don't know what the term is, John. Is it severable or whatever it's called?
So with this rezone, we would take those amendments to the council, to that development agreement, to say this 0.83 acres is now commercial with any, expectations that the council, and recommendations the planning commission had for that.
Okay, so it doesn't undo the entire development agreement.
Amend it?
You would just do an amendment. So it would,
Okay.
in that amendment, we'd say, we're not unwinding the other stuff. We're just changing this one little acre to this designation.
Okay. I'll just speak for myself. I have a little concern only in that, Terry, I've supported you on this all the way through. One of the reasons that council in the beginning and planning commission in their recommendations to council supported was because of the nature of the building that was going to be on Washington. It was kind of, I don't want to call it a landmark building, but it was going to be nicer than usual. And that kind of offset some of the thinking that the stereotype, I'll say, that goes with storage unit type building. And I just want to make sure that we're not giving that up, unwinding that now and giving that up because it doesn't pencil financially. Does that make sense? I've been fighting a head cold and I don't know that I'm
I
making
think
any
some
sense
of
at all.
the architectural features that were in that original agreement should continue on this type of building, whatever goes in there.
Yes, yeah, I think that says it pretty succinctly. Yes, thank you, Laura.
Any other questions for Mr. Hess before we move to, the applicant is here to also answer any questions we may have.
So we have seen a couple of concepts, but not one defined concept that came with the rezone. So there's a few different ideas that they have. One was a really interesting kind of live-work unit that came in and mixed use with residential and commercial areas is a permitted use. So that's one. But all of the buildings that we saw were really nice looking, would be a great addition to Washington Boulevard. It's just a consideration from staff because that was a specific item as part of the annexation and application of the zone, was to make sure that that building was held to a really high standard architecturally. So staff is confident that what is built will be that way. It's just more of a, we want to mention it. We want to make sure that if Planning Commission feels the same way, it's rolled forward. And then we would make those amendments with City Council as this moves forward, should it be recommended.
But there is no proposed business yet.
No proposed business that I'm aware of, no tenant, and not one specific proposed building. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to invite the applicant to address us. And while the applicant's coming up, I know it's been a long meeting and I appreciate your guys' patience. We are getting to Randall here quickly, but if we could just minimize talking in the audience, I just personally have old ears and it's distracting. Thank you guys so much. Hello.
Armstrong, Layton, Utah.
Perfect, thank you.
So yeah, as Scott said, we're not really going to change the quality or structure or materials. We plan on still doing a very nice high-end building. Just that particular use was just not going to work for that building is what it came down to. So basically we're going to get rid of the industrial or manufacturer and just go commercial and put a real nice one or two different proposals for a business there, as far as probably about 10,000 square foot building is what I think we can still fit on there. So
Is the size of the lot that you've proposed large enough to accommodate the type of commercial that you want to put in there?
yes, and honestly, we're not really changing anything as far as the storage, the layout, the parking lot. I mean, we're really changing nothing on it except for that building. And maybe the footprint, we might have to move the footprint a little bit but whatever fits in there as far as setbacks and that is what we're going to put in there. I mean, that's really all we're proposing is to do a more commercial building instead of a commercial / warehouse building. So in reality, it's probably going to be, it's not going to be that same building, but it's going to be just as nice of a building and probably a better use for the piece.
Speaking of just as nice of a building, you kind of heard the conversation for a second here about that development agreement and the higher standards in terms of building materials it has. Do you have any concerns with an amendment that specifies that it still has to be that high standard of build on this commercial rezone?
No, we wouldn't be opposed to that as long as it's reasonable, hard surface, brick, stone, something like that. This one was real specific with some of the ornate stuff, which we probably couldn't do that type of stuff, but as far as the quality of materials, I don't have a problem with that because I want it to be a nice building, obviously.
Oh, okay.
So-
And there were specific like other design elements in the original.
Well, we actually showed a picture of the
Oh, I
exact
see.
building
I
is
see.
what it
Okay.
was. And so they kind of, if I believe right, it was in the picture was in the developer agreement. You will build this building, pretty much,
I see.
is what it was.
And if I remember the original agreement, there was the cross access that was sort of recommended or imposed.
Right.
It seems to me, penciling or not, that it just makes a little bit more logical sense that it is going to be tying into the property to the south potentially in the future,
Right.
right?
Potentially, that was not part of the developer's agreement originally,
Yeah.
like in the current one. We talked about it, we discussed it. We didn't know if there was room there to actually do that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we've had the discussion about it, but And yeah, I think that property's for sale now or something, maybe but we've discussed it. It wasn't part of the original. We'd be open to it. I don't know if we'd want to tie it exactly because you got the wear and tear. I mean, if we had something in place for a maintenance agreement or buyback or something like that, we could discuss that as well. Now, with that, we would have to do a cross-access agreement between the two
Right.
parcel B and C for this, the two parcels, because now we would be separating those two parcels.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to open a public hearing. So if you would like to speak on this item, I do want to, though, really quick before anyone comes up, just note some of our norms for public hearings. So time will be made available for anyone to address the commission. Citizens will be asked to limit their remarks or questions to 5 minutes each. We will have a timer during our public hearings tonight, just so that we can all help us with pacing and understanding where we're at in that 5 minutes. If the audience can also please refrain from clapping. Any material that's displayed or referenced, such as pictures, written materials, will become a part of the record and be left with the commission. Speakers were required to sign in at the door, and if you'll please state your name and your city that you reside in before beginning any remarks. If you agree with the previous speaker, you can state your agreement to avoid repetitious remarks. Speakers shall address the commission from the podium and the microphone and shall address all comments to the commission. So with that being said, I'm opening a public hearing only on this particular item regarding the rezoning from manufacturing to commercial. Anyone online that's got a hand raised specifically?
No.
Oh,
Move to close the public hearing.
we have a motion to close and a second. Okay,
Never mind. I unmove.
Okay, perfect. Come on up, sir.
I didn't see it coming.
Oh, I was
Sorry, Kevin.
indecisive, hesitate and die type thing. So, Kevin Burns, North Ogden. When this project originally came in front of the city council, I was rather supportive of the use of the property. But with the split that we're currently looking at, that 0.83 acres is really small to put something on that's going to be of any real value. In a commercial zone entering the city like that. Maverick sits on 1 acre of ground, and we all know we can look at that and we know what we're seeing. It's tight, and so I would just encourage the Planning Commission to send forward a recommendation to council to not approve this particular rezone and work on something that you can finish with a piece of property that can be a little more useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other public comments. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Excellent. So the public hearing is, do we have to do all in favor on that one? Okay, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Now we are moving into consideration and discussion.
I share Citizen Burns' concern about the size of the lot. It seems awful small. I mean, we have individuals up here that have much more experience in building and things like that than I do. Can something successful really be done on 0.83 acres when we consider we require 10-foot sidewalks on Washington, correct?
Mhm.
We have a setback from the sidewalk, a landscaping setback to the parking. And then we've got parking,
Yep.
and then you've got setbacks.
And
As I start piecing all of that together in my mind, it feels like there really isn't any room on there. And then we're talking about access. We're not going to get access out onto Washington. There's no way UDOT's going to give that to us. Access right directly onto 1700 would be problematic, just like the access that we eliminated in the
Mhm.
last meeting, recommended eliminating. I'm not sure that that's a large enough parcel. If it were an acre and a quarter, then, you think about you brought up the Maverick, a good, easy visual example. I think we've all been there within the last day or two. Right? It's the one place every North Ogdener goes. It's tight in there. It's really tight. And if you can, I'm just having some heartache with recommending. It just feels like it's too small for me right at this point.
I think it would be actually tighter than the Maverick because we're going to have that access through the
Right.
west property that has to come through. So that building's going to be much smaller.
Right.
That's why I asked the applicant if he felt this was large enough,
Right.
which that was my concern too.
I guess I would maybe propose a dissenting opinion, which is, I mean,
I can't hear you.
oh, sorry. I would propose a dissenting opinion, which is I completely understand where you're coming from on that, but I wasn't a huge fan of this becoming manufacturing when this all went down originally. There was a really great development agreement put together. I don't like the idea of manufacturing on that part of Washington. I think commercial, goes with some of our city goals and some of the things we're trying to achieve. I agree it could be small, but like, could it be the first step towards something? And I mean, could we envision something there that would be commercial?
And I agree. And as a comparison, the 7-Eleven property,
Mhm.
not including, I don't know what the use is, but this is just for you and me, not including this, just the 7-Eleven property here
Mhm.
is 0.71 acres.
Oh, okay.
And I would also, I wish the applicant the best, but I don't think they're gonna get Maverick traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
And the original layout per, the applicant is sticking to it. 0.7, I'm just gonna go with 0.71 because we're including part of Washington Boulevard in the acreage here. So it's really hard to deduce down what the actual buildable, usable.
Which should be, I noticed that as well after the staff report written, but that was dedicated as part of the subdivision with the manufacturing, the residential and the manufacturing. So that line should be established and could be backed out of the concept plan, but we don't have an exact surveyed area of the rezone yet. So the rezone as recommended, whether, denial, approval, or something completely different would be, should be conditioned upon that survey, but that's always a part of the final portion.
Scott, on the commercial properties to the north,
Mhm.
all the way up to Big O.
Yep.
What is sort of our average depth of commercial properties off Washington?
I can
And
match.
should we have this something fairly consistent with that?
Yeah. It's about 150 feet deep from the right-of-way line to the back. And that's the express car wash. Big O's about that same size. And I was looking right now, so Big O parcel, which I think we can all kind of identify in our mind, that's 0.94, but the Ben Lomond CrossFit is 0.35 acres. So to give you like an idea of relative size, the Sherwin-Williams parcel that was just south of box storage is 0.79, and the original concept on that project was going to be a 10,000 square foot building cut up into 4 2,500 square foot bays with parking out there for mixed parking. So it's more a consideration of where that building is placed, and commercial against manufacturing can have a 0 rear setback. So where before you were going to have a climate controlled storage building that was tied directly to the storage units, that could be a commercial building without interior climate controlled storage, but still be 0 lot line to the back. So you can maximize the size of even a small parcel by pushing the building as far west as kind of physically possible. So I'm not as concerned about the 0.71 to 0.8 size, but it will limit. I mean, you won't get a 20,000 square foot building on the parcel, but there's several similarly sized parcels with commercial locations that are successful in the city, as Commissioner Bailey showed.
And I would say I would agree with the 1 acre lot size. It is nice to have for bigger businesses. But we got to remember we're putting my thought is we're putting in a ton of townhomes in this area. There's a lot of already future development that's coming. Could it be a small shop that would be beneficial to those community members that are going to be moving in there? You know, you're going to have, we just approved one earlier today, 134 units that's going right behind it. There's several other developments that are right there that are going to add hundreds of community members that maybe they need a little convenience store, maybe they need, you know, a beauty shop, a nail salon, like, you know, there's other avenues that could go in there that may be able to fit into those smaller lot sizes. So just something to think about. You know, like a Maverick obviously would not fit in paper
Right.
there very well, but something smaller that could benefit those other new developments.
And then I would just add that
Mhm.
there was a little bit of a drawn out approval process for the storage units.
Right.
And having this come back through as a conversion to this zone, I support it. And if it's a mess and there's too many people, then I just won't patron the business there.
Do we also, I'm thinking this, it makes sense that we have the same building standard as the development agreement in terms of building materials. Is that
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, I think that should carry over.
be part of the rezone condition?
Or specifically in the recommendation for approval, just state that we are only recommending the verbiage for a rezone, everything else stands.
Mm.
That way we don't miss something.
My question for Scott, you mentioned the new zone, community commercial Southtown. It does recommend rock, brick, stucco, correct, in that zone. So is that what is in the development agreement?
Yeah, so the development agreement reads that the developer shall complete a building which is similar in materials to the one shown on Exhibit A. And there's the physical building that they had proposed with the same percentages of rock, brick, and stucco on all sides of the building. Stone and rock shall wrap the corners of the building as shown on the example, a minimum distance. And I don't have the signed DA here, but there's a minimum distance on the building. So they presented a building and said, we are going to build this building. So the development agreement tied back to, essentially you have to build that Exhibit A. The difficulty of that is thinking about the Village of Prominence Point development agreement, which had that corner building on 1700 North in Washington. And we just considered a fast stop 10 years later, right? A gas station. So we had to think about what the intent was versus what's coming. So I'm weary to keep it just the exact same language, but to say something more like recommend rezone with similar materials to the development agreement, because otherwise I think they're going to have to come up with, this is the concept for an exhibit. And maybe between now and city council, they can do that. But a wide range of materials are permitted. The Ben Lomond CrossFit is a mix of, well, it's got stucco on it and then standing seam steel, the steel building itself that's there. There's some aluminum fascia, like there's a variety of materials that were approved on that building and in the general area. So our design standards are not a shall, they're a may for the planning commission to consider.
I would recommend keeping some of the building materials the same as it's in the development agreement, not forcing them into building that exact building.
Yeah.
So-
The likelihood that will come to fruition
Yeah.
is little. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does someone want to take a stab at a motion on this?
You say you're going at it?
I think this one, no, I think I'd struggle with.
I'll give it a stab.
All right, thank you.
I'm looking for input from all four of you. I'll move that we recommend approval to city council of the legislative application to consider rezoning property at approximately 1650 North Washington Boulevard from manufacturing M1 to community commercial Southtown along the frontage of Washington Boulevard. And now this is the tricky part. Keeping the intent of the materials language that was in the existing development agreement. How's that? Does that work?
I think that'll work.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Okay, so we will go ahead and move to a vote on this item. Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemeyer,
Yes.
and I vote yes, which moves us to item number 9. The one we've been waiting here for anxiously, which is the public hearing consideration and recommendation on a legislative application to consider rezoning property at 715 East, 2100 North from rural residential RE20 to small lot residential zone R15 and multifamily residential zone R4. Our presenter this evening is going to be Scott Hess.
Thank you, Commission. So first, I want to apologize to the Commission, the applicant, and the public. There's the holdover language from neighborhood commercial in this staff report, and that could be, it's my error and oversight. So I just wanted to apologize for that. There is no neighborhood commercial being proposed here in this
Right.
particular project. So just to, I guess, calm those fears, or I want to state up front that was eliminated altogether. The first proposal by Coal West on this property was recommended for denial or kind of amendment to city council, and they pulled the project altogether. And then we've done the Matlock property, and now this is the second time through for the Randall piece, which fronts 2100 North and has Monroe Boulevard. The applicant has a slide deck they'd like to come up and speak to about the changes from the previous development to this development. But essentially what you're looking at is 40 front load townhomes, 43 residential single family units, the townhomes being tied around the center of the project at 2200 North and Monroe. The rest of the project being single family residential, with several of the lots being on the north portion being residential R18 sized. So an overall reduction in total number of units. The resulting density on this piece of property is 5.55 units per acre. North Ogden's general plan shows this area as residential low density, and low density by the general plan is 1 to 6 units per acre. So this is a net increase over the general plan of 0.5 units per acre, or about 7 units total over the general plan, what its recommendation should be or would be. There's still been significant cross coordination between this property and the development to the west, which was recommended or approved by City Council as residential R15, not to exceed 90 residential units, and bound by a development agreement that will be heard next Tuesday at City Council. So the current, I guess, precedence or the current approval is for single family on that parcel west, that's 600 east and 2100 north. The big difference with this project is that you have Monroe Boulevard, and staff is supportive of 2 elements to consider. One is providing a variety of housing choices across multiple areas in North Ogden City. So we just heard 134 rental townhomes going in on the southwest side of North Ogden. That area of the city has borne the vast, majority of units. There are connected units in the city. And once you get north and east in North Ogden, there's relatively few. There were several apartment and townhome projects that are approved right in downtown over here that are several decades old and slightly newer. But other than that, there haven't been a whole lot of developed residential connected units east of Washington Boulevard, except for the first, several hundred feet. Behind Walker Cinema, there are some. So staff is supportive of looking at Monroe Boulevard as an 80-foot transportation corridor, aligning land uses with that significant transportation investment and putting some multifamily housing there. On the net density, it is a slight increase over the general plan land use. So pulling that back to 6 units an acre would likely be reasonable. And then from staff's perspective, allowing clustering, or, that would be small lot, single family in the townhomes piece. But I think that's a reasonable request given the size of the roadway and the connectivity in the area. With that, staff will answer any questions, and we have the developer here to do their slideshow and answer questions as well.
What is planned for the canal
So in
through this property?
Yeah, good question. The original development agreement or the development agreement draft that we have in here talks about the canal being open as a trail. At the city council for the Matlock piece to the west, that wasn't a big talking point. It was mostly just single family residential. So as of right now, working with North Ogden Canal Company, it looks like the canal would be piped and not have a trail on it, no like coordinated open space, essentially. The canal company, as far as I understand, has a 40-foot easement around that canal or like center line of the canal. So that may inhibit some of the homes or, have very specific conditions on where single-family homes could be placed. But as of right now, there's no open space trail. And we would love that. I think staff would recommend it, but it's not part of this particular project.
If that canal right of way is 40 feet, the private streets that the canal piping would run through don't equal the 40 feet. So that's going to be a challenge to not only put the canal in, but the water and the sewer, stormwater, all of those piping issues.
We agree. And staff has talked about that. And we, between us and Culinary Water and Storm and Sewer, Public Works Director, we've all chatted about that. And it's kind of right now what you'd be considering is entitling a zone. And that doesn't get to the engineering portion. That's during the subdivision, but it's something to consider. But does that change what land use falls on the ground? Or is that just a consideration of making the project work on the other end from a design standpoint?
The face to the west, they had some open space for the canal and, like you said, maybe a trail or something next to it. But then it would stop at this boundary and go on to the streets.
So the revised concept doesn't have that open space because single family
Are they going to close the canal and pipe it?
Yep.
Okay.
But that still has to go back to city council for approval. That's not an approved plan, correct?
So the zone is approved contingent upon a development agreement. So short of the developer and the council not being able to come to terms on that contract zoning development agreement, that could potentially fall apart. But as of right now, the property west has residential R15 zoning at no more than 90 rooftops.
If there are no other questions, we will proceed forward. So at this point in time, we'd like to invite the developer to address us and the public. We're having the developer address us.
Good evening. My name is Tanner Webster. I'm with the Rodeo Development out of Holiday. We're the applicant here. I know a lot of you in this room came here for this project tonight, and just want to say up front, I've read every comment. There were change.org. We sat through and we watched all of the planning commission meetings and the city council meetings from the other proposal and the previous proposal. And we just wanted to say that we listened and we are doing the best that we can on this. Tonight, we want to show what we're approving or what we're proposing and why we're proposing it. So if we can pull up the next slide. And so like I was saying, we heard all the resident concerns as well as the staff concerns. We had a neighborhood meeting on Monday. I think about 30 people came by and we spoke to them. And I think maybe we didn't get all the support, but we did get some kind of understanding from all the neighbors. A lot of the, I guess, concerns were that neighborhood quality of life, affordability, traffic, streets, infrastructure, size of the roads, water resources, and the process. So we just wanted to be as transparent and throughout this process as possible. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this was the previous proposal, 107 units, more townhomes with a commercial pad. That was pretty much all of the feedback that we got was this is too dense, not enough single family detached, and no commercial pad. So we removed that. We also shifted the road down as well and made the northern road private instead of the south roads. If we could go to the next slide, please. And again, we're just reducing the total unit count, and we are under that 6 units per acre that is in the general plan for this area. So we have more single family attached, less single family detached. And we just did the best as we could as far as eliminating as many units as possible. Next slide, please. There's been a lot of confusion on what we are proposing, so we wanted to mention what we are not proposing. Apartments are multifamily. All of these are single family, attached or detached. We're not proposing a variance. A variance is a legal process that requires proof of hardship. We do not have that. We are seeking a modification to the R15 zone via development agreement, taking into account everybody's thoughts and feedbacks and opinions. Nothing is 3-story. We are asking for a height exception through the development agreement, just so we can have 2-story single family and 2-story single family attached and detached. Also no commercial. One of the previous proposals had no sidewalks. We are proposing sidewalks, and we are not proposing high density housing. We are in that low density general plan of 5.7 units per acre. If we could go to the next slide. Again, like I was saying, in the general plan, 1 to 6 units per acre, we're under that. In this neighborhood, we have a variety of housing types. We have the R15 to the west, the R2 to the north, R18 to the south, and we've incorporated all of those in our site plan. Next slide, please. Again, addressing all the concerns, we are proposing attached housing to pay for that Monroe Boulevard. I think we talk about it in a minute, but just the costs associated with that and what we are doing. One of the council members in the previous proposal mentioned if they are going to approve this, I think he said the developer needs to bring out their checkbook, and we are. We don't know exactly what those costs are going to be. I'm hoping it's less than $1 million, but I think it's going to be more between the stormwater infrastructure, Monroe Boulevard, and all the dedication. Some of the concerns about the school capacity and the density, enrollment has been declining, and Orchard Springs is only at 53% of capacity. We want more children in the area, more young families, and that is what this housing type provides. Next slide, please. Again, I kind of got ahead of myself, but this is what this project is paying for: Monroe Boulevard, 2200 North, the canal piping, and the storm drain infrastructure. We've been working with the city as well as the developer to the west, Western Land Development, in terms of kind of working together specifically on the stormwater infrastructure. I know that's been a big concern with flooding and all of that. Next slide, please. These are starter homes, moderate income housing plan that I think everybody has heard about over and over and over again. We are trying to help North Ogden achieve those goals. And we have the attached units and the detached units. Many people have said you could just do the R20 zone. We certainly could. I think as a team, we have decided it's going to be at least $800,000. It's a lot of money. North Ogden residents, not many people can afford that. And so we want to give people the opportunity to kind of set up roots in the neighborhood, whether they buy a single family attached house and maybe they moved into a detached and then they move up the chain and they don't have to move up or out. And I think I mentioned that on the last slide. If we can go to the last one. We just want to keep families in North Ogden. It is very difficult if you didn't buy a house before 2020 or 2021. The interest rates are starting to come down a little bit and hopefully they continue to decline. But if you miss the boat, it's very difficult to get started. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And I would like to come up and address some of the resident concerns afterwards, if that's okay. So
Thank you. Yeah, we'll do questions from planning commissioners only at this point, and then we'll hear from the public hearing, and then we can do that. So thank you for proposing that. Thank you for that presentation, and it sounds like you have done a lot of work talking to the residents, which is wonderful. So thank you. Questions?
John, can we pull those back up, the slides? Sorry, I just closed them. Can we go to slide 5?
All right, let me make sure I'm sharing it online again.
Yeah. On the sidewalks, will sidewalks be on both sides of the street or one side?
I think we currently have it on one side, but we're totally happy to discuss this.
Okay. Can we go to slide 8? Is Monroe, so you put, it's, maybe it would have been a previous slide, but you mentioned Monroe's gonna be a major collector road. Are you guys putting it all the way through, connecting it, or are you guys gonna stub it off at the end of the development? Because that field is another parcel of land, correct?
On our property, that's where we're putting it in. So I guess we can't to the north.
So then, you mentioned it was a major collector and you're gonna have, it makes it sound like it's gonna go all the way through when you
Sure.
say it that way, but it still has to funnel to 1,700. So I just want to make sure
Sure.
I'm addressing that.
Yep.
And then slide 9, the next slide. Are you including HOA cost in these monthly payments? The rough estimates, or is that just mortgage cost?
No, you can see it kind of in the footnotes. Yeah, it's just taxes, insurance, and PMI.
Okay.
Is there an HOA?
Yes, there will be.
There will be proposed.
I have other questions, but I don't want to take all the time.
If you would like to ask, you can ask
Yeah.
a few more if you'd like.
Yeah. So
Of the
with-
applicant.
going back to the canal, it looks like units 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and possibly 7 would have the canal under it if you don't, even with running it under the road.
Yes,
So-
where would you propose putting that canal?
We are not entirely sure where we would put the canal yet. We have had discussions about moving it and rerouting it. And so we would have to reroute it. We couldn't put it where it currently is just
Yeah.
without rerouting it.
So
I
like,
guess one important note is just we are at the rezoning level, and so we will, and it's okay to kind of preliminary ask some of this, but that will be like a site plan level review.
just trying to understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because
Just making sure we're,
because you're showing units where there is a canal that with the 40-foot easement.
And just
Yeah.
to understand, you'll have to have room for the canal and for all the utilities that are going to go
Yes,
in those areas. So making enough room for that.
absolutely.
And then one other,
yeah, no.
again,
please-
I know
please.
this is just a proposal. We're looking at the annexation piece of, or the, not, the
The
rezoning.
rezoning.
I know on the Matlock property, so in this instance, you have units 1 through 7 are the R15, but on the other property, if you were matching, they went with R18 that were surrounding other, in this case, you have an RE20 property there that you're surrounding in R15 versus the other ones were doing R18.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to discuss that. I believe they just had it on the south portion, and so that's what we
Yeah,
did.
and the only reason I said surrounding is because they went south portion because the other side of 2100 here is R18, where this one property, you're surrounding them in R15 versus surrounding them in maybe R18. That would be maybe more palatable.
Sure.
I do like what you've proposed along Monroe Boulevard, that we've minimized the driveway access out onto that major collector. So that's a positive. So.
But this one would have 3, so it would just be the 3 units, right? 1, 2, and 3 with this current would go out on Monroe because they would have no
Yeah.
other access.
Correct. Yeah.
And we've tried to encourage either combining driveways or eliminating them on these major roads so vehicles aren't having to back out
Yeah.
and
And
traffic will flow better.
with the canal and the utilities, the site plan has been, it's been very challenging to lay something out. So this is just very preliminary.
Sure.
So
Understand, and I know that's not what you were just bringing as a concept. I was
Yeah.
just making comments from what I'm seeing.
Any other questions for the applicant, or we're good? Okay. Thank you. And like I said, we'll probably be bringing you back up, but thank you.
Yep.
So at this time, we're going to go ahead and proceed with opening the public hearing for anyone who would like to address the commission. And you've got timer. Thank you. Hello, sir.
I'll set a timer, so thank you.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you. And just name and city.
Chris Remkus, North Ogden citizen. I live on 657 East, 2100 North. Firstly, I appreciate the developer meeting us yesterday and talking through the project. And I firmly believe that we should try and find a way to work with them. We've been here several times. This development is not going away. These folks are willing to work with us, and I appreciate that. That's my own opinion. So, but I do still oppose the R4 zoning request. It has been discussed several times for this area and shot down. I do not believe it meets the general plan. We may have a density of 6, but that if this is developed 1 acre at a time, we would not be meeting that density in our 1 acre increments. It's only meeting it because it's spread out over 15 acres. I may be wrong in that statement, but that's what I believe. I also don't believe it's needed for our attainable housing, which we've discussed several times. How can it be when we don't know what the metric is being held to? This is probably another discussion we'll bring up when we talk about the overlay development plan next, but when we had our planning commission meeting, not planning commission, but our city council meeting, we asked Scott about what percentage we were meeting, and it's not very clear what percentage we need to meet with the state. So how can we keep developing and pushing towards this R4 development when we don't even know the metric we're trying to meet with the state? I think it's evident by the slides that the R4 housing is needed to pay for an 80-foot road, Monroe to the east, that I don't believe we need at this time, not 80 feet wide at least. So is there a way that we can work with this developer to only develop 40 feet of it and still get 2 lanes of traffic across it? And then when the developer comes on the east side, they can develop the other half of the road. Maybe that reduced cost could help us reduce my rub of R14 development. So I do challenge the city to find ways to work with the developer to see if we can mitigate their costs. Maybe we do need to participate in the road or the covering of the canal. And really, it's personal. I don't care for the R4 in my neighborhood in this part of town. I appreciate the 300 homes we're putting on 1700 North. So I've come to the understanding that staff and I are probably going to have to agree to disagree more often than not. So, but I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kevin Burns, still from North Ogden. Tired of me yet? It's okay if you tell me to stay home. I might listen. Ditto what Chris said on most of it. We had the conversation with the developer the other night, and he talked to us a lot about the purpose behind the need for the R4s to help offset those costs for building Monroe, which is an expensive piece of road. And if it's a normal piece of road, I get it, like in a normal subdivision, but this is a major traffic thoroughfare, a major part of North Ogden's transportation plan. And it might be appropriate for North Ogden to pony up and have some and put some money in. I don't know if it's a WACOG type funding project or some type of project like that, but it might not be the most correct thing to do to have the developer foot the entire bill for that major transportation road. Just a thought on that. And I am curious with the number of private roads, not only associated with this development, but some of the other developments. Do those folks that are living on the private roads, will they also be paying the new transportation utility fee with them living on the private road? And does that look anything like double taxation or anything like that when you look at it on this road? I don't know. Just curious if they're paying for that as well with us. And I think that was all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any raised hands online either? No raised, okay.
Brent Call, North Ogden resident. I'd like to compliment the developer on their efforts. I think they've done a great job in trying to put together something, but I apologize. I'm going to have to oppose a lot of the things that they're suggesting. I agree with the concerns on the R4 in this zone. As has been mentioned, we've had numerous discussions and that's been thrown out multiple times, and it just doesn't fit into this neighborhood. I also have to disagree with Scott in wanting to push R4 further east. Right now, the most furthest east any R4 is at about 500 east. And there's nothing east of that. The general plan suggests that we should move our zoning up as we move further east in North Ogden and further up the hill. I think this is not consistent with that. I'd also like to address the private road question. If the commission decides to go through with this, I really think that that upper road that would eventually connect to Widgeon Way should not be a private road. The other roads, maybe. But I sent the commission some information, some research that I did just prior to the meeting. And I apologize, I didn't get it to you earlier. I did send it to the city council. And private roads, there is a place for private roads. But those private roads should be limited to large developments where there is a PUD, homeowners association, excuse me, that covers a lot more than just the private roads. It should be considered where there are things like a clubhouse, a pool, common landscaping, all of those kinds of things. Kent Williams expressed some, I think, some very great concerns on that earlier. And I suggest you take a look at the information that I sent you on that research. I feel for the developer. They're placed in a very difficult position to have to fund Monroe. And I agree with some of the other comments that maybe the city needs to pony up a little bit here. Personally, I don't think Monroe, we've been talking about Monroe for 50 years. And we're not getting anywhere with it. I think the general plan would be much better to focus on Fruitland Drive, Mountain Road as corridors to get us going south besides just Washington Boulevard. It's going to take another 50 years to finally get Monroe in. So I think we're wasting money and effort on trying to get Monroe as a thoroughfare. You've heard a lot from the citizens of North Ogden. This has probably been maybe a new experience for the commission and the council to have this much community support in opposition of something like this. I think this is kind of a watershed moment for both the commission and the council to listen to the citizens, to listen to the concerns, to try and work more closely with the citizenry. This is a great opportunity. And again, I applaud the developers for trying to bring the community in on their discussion to to try and develop a good plan. And we need to, I'll just finish my thought. We need to do more of that. We need to have more discussion ahead of time on these kinds of projects. And I hope that the Planning Commission, the council are listening to the citizenry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Remember the mic this time. There. My name is Mary Buse and I have lived in North Ogden since 1976. Moved to 1996 where I am where I am now, where Monroe is right there. My biggest concern about all this is every time we talk about anything, it's always about the master plan. None of this is in the master plan. That's zoned R20. And I think if they kept it zoned R20 and put those small homes in there, my question is, would the road still have to be Monroe? So I'm going to start right now. We understand Monroe Boulevard is on the master plan, but this segment would only serve this subdivision and doesn't connect to any other developed areas. I drove the Monroe today. It's a field, goes through to a top road that's already wide enough, and then it stops, and then you cross 2700, and then it goes up there and stops. So there's really no through. There's a lot of stopping. The developer has stated that the high density in his plan, if you look at his plan, I don't have the map with me, is necessary to fund the road. He told us right that when we met with him. There's 35 right in the middle of R4 that he said he had to put it there to pay for the road. Would include 35 homes right in the middle of the plan if they didn't have to pay for the road. This approach seems more driven by short-term financial or political considerations rather than factual planning and long-term infrastructure needs. This parcel is currently zoned R20, which is reflected as such on the master plan. And I'm going to keep referring to that because that's what they've been saying to me for all these years. Monroe is on the master plan. Rezoning to R4 and R5 would effectively alter the plan after the fact, rather than following planning guidance. We also note that the master plan map was created, like he said, over 50 years ago. Conditions, development patterns, and infrastructure needs have changed significantly since then, and we do not feel the map reflects the realities of this neighborhood today. Requiring high density in this middle of the parcel to fund a road that only partially serves this area is short-sighted planning, not thoughtful planning that balances long-term infrastructure, land use, and community character. If zoning is adjusted to fund infrastructure in this case, it establishes a precedent that density can be increased anywhere to offset infrastructure costs regardless of long-term planning compatibility. If the council is comfortable changing zoning easily to fund if infrastructure, that approach seems inconsistent with how other standard roads and developments are handled. Where zoning typically follows planning principles rather than being adjusted to pay for a single road segment. This parcel was previously, if you remember right, denied R4 and 5 for similar reasons, and nearby housing demand is already being met. And you just talked about it tonight all across the street in Washington. Just like planning for Monroe Boulevard takes time, we do not feel that the planning for these projects in terms of zoning and preparing the land has been given sufficient time to be carefully evaluated and implemented. We've attended many meetings on this project and repeatedly seen the same proposals week after week. Planning for a single home takes months of careful preparation. This project involves 80 homes. Well, yet we do not feel like the city has fully considered the long-term implications of the zoning layout and infrastructure. While the developer has his plans, it is the city that decides where the project fits, and we are concerned that the long-term planning has not been thoroughly thought through. We are asking the council to consider whether this level of density is justified or whether the infrastructure requirement is artificially inflating density. If the parcel were developed closer to its current zoning, R20, would the road requirement still be the same? And if the segment serves primarily this subdivision, could a standard local subdivision road meet the access needs without requiring a full corridor, full collector build? Okay. We are not asking you to reject growth. We are asking you to separate infrastructure funding from zoning decisions and ensure that density is based on sound planning principles, not on the need to finance a single segment of Monroe Boulevard. We appreciate the opportunity to provide input, and we want to ensure that the voices of the community are fully considered in these decisions, as we do not feel that has happened consistently in the past. We also have to ask the council to consider that these decisions will have a long-term impact on the character of North Ogden. So I'm hoping that we can follow the master plan on this property and keep the R20 there and have families that have yards. Kids can go out and play on their swings. And we're not seeing kids all over the streets riding their bikes because they have nowhere to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mindy Albee from North Ogden. I agree with the objections raised here tonight. I am opposed to the current Randall proposal because of its R4 zoning and bad private streets. As you have heard from hundreds of neighbors in the past 4 months, the R4 multifamily zoning is inappropriate for this area of North Ogden. It is too dense for this area, and it sets an inappropriate precedent for all future development in this part of town. On page 1 of the staff report, the staff comment states, quote, "The residential zoning is compatible with the existing and proposed uses." This comment, close quote. This comment is misleading. It is true that the general plan calls for residential zoning in this area, but this statement completely glosses over the fact that the general plan calls for this area of town and this property specifically to be low-density, single-family residential. The developer is not requesting anything close to what the general plan calls for. He's requesting R4 multifamily zoning, which is the highest density possible under North Ogden zoning code. R4 is the opposite end of the residential zoning spectrum here in North Ogden. Regardless of what fancy alternative words this developer uses to describe his shared wall units, they are still the highest possible density that North Ogden code allows. The city staff should be highlighting this problem for you rather than sweeping it under the rug. In addition, allowing R4 zoning on this parcel would set a dangerous precedent. We have discussed at length with the Matlock proposal, but it needs to be said again here too. In 30 years, or whenever the owners of the undeveloped lots to the east decide to sell their land to be developed, those future developers will look to this zoning on this parcel to decide what goes on those. If you give these developers R4, there is nothing to stop those future developers from cramming townhomes and apartments into those parcels where they also don't belong. That is a precedent that you cannot allow to set. The future of this entire area of town depends on you to keep the character and the feel of this area of town intact. The developer says he needs to put townhomes on this parcel in order to make enough money to pay for Monroe Boulevard. The fact that this developer is interested in buying overpriced land does not justify forcing the neighbors to stomach townhomes in a neighborhood where they do not belong. If the landowner is asking too much for the land, that's the developer's problem, not the neighbor's problem. Do not fall for the developer's claims that his choice to buy overpriced land means that you should recommend inappropriate zoning on this land. I'd like to speak about the bad private streets. The inadequate parking and street system sets the city and the neighborhood up for perpetual failure. One, these are the same type of unsafe streets that we have seen in other proposals. They do not comply with city street standards. We have good city street standards, and this developer should follow them. Why have city street standards if the city does not intend for developers to follow them? Two, poor emergency and service vehicle access is reason enough to reject these narrow streets. Three, narrow streets mean parking problems. Even if they allowed parking on both sides of the street, there would still be 0 parking spaces provided along the sides of the streets adjacent to the townhouse garages. I also don't see any designated guest parking near the townhouses. 4, law enforcement agencies in Utah report never-ending misunderstandings and battles about parking compliance and HOA inability to manage parking on private streets. It's easy to say, oh, the HOA will deal with the illegal parking, but we all know that HOAs often do not address these problems, and the surrounding neighborhoods are the ones who have to live with the negative impacts. Number 5, inadequate streets blare out that this project does not fit. They remind every driver who sees them that this project is shoehorned into existing neighborhoods without blending in and without making the sacrifices that existing neighbors made in their subdivisions to create a less urban environment. Please reject this proposal on the basis of its problematic streets and its very inappropriate R4 zoning. Thank you.
We appreciate the clarity of comments that have been provided, and as has been stated, you guys have been incredibly united and clear on what you're asking for. So we really appreciate that and appreciate that clarity you've given to the commission. Is there any other public comments that have unique or different points at this point that we'd like to have addressed? Yes, please.
My name is Michelle Beignet and I live in North Ogden. My comments are they're more spur of the moment. I just had this overwhelming feeling to come up, so I apologize. It's not written. As a parent, the idea that I'm seeing from this proposal is, starter homes or whatever. Where I lived before in Ogden, the houses were tiny. And they were what they are. They're older. The house we had, I thought was going to be great, but we had no kids around because the houses were so small. Families might come in, they'll buy a house, they'll have one kid, maybe a second, and they're like, this is too small. We want a yard. We want a front yard. We want a backyard. The kids need somewhere to play. And so that was part of our problem was my kids no longer had friends that lived close because everyone was moving. So the idea, if I want my kids to make friends and continue to make friends with these new houses, if we know they're going to be moving in 3-4 years, moving's hard. So that is I don't know, I just think that's been the biggest thing that's getting to me as a parent, as well as the idea of Monroe getting bigger, with, I like how my kids can get to Green Acres because it feels like a dead end and I don't have to worry about cars zipping through. I saw mention that there might be a roundabout. I don't know what the plan is. I just know that if you make it a bigger road and a through street, kids' safety is in jeopardy. I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bott. I've been a resident in North Ogden for 40 years, and I agree with everybody else as far as the zoning goes. There's a couple things that the developers didn't bring up. They brought you the zoning close by, R2, R5 and everything else. But if you look to the east, there's a development on the other side of the church. It's R112.5. Those are nice homes. They're 1,800 to maybe 2,500 square feet. They're slab on grade homes. And that's what really needs to be put in this area. They say there's not enough affordable housing for people, but you just approved like almost 300 townhomes. And when they bring up the price of a townhome at $450 or $450,000, then you add an HOA of another couple $100 a month on top of that. What myself, I would go buy a nicer home that didn't have an HOA. I'm also concerned, what about with all the additional people? Are we going to have enough police support, enough fire support? I talked with the police chief in one of the other meetings, and he said they were already down a couple officers. So that's just a couple points that I'd like to bring up. I know you've heard everything else. So once again, I appreciate all the hard work you guys have done, because I know it's a struggle and you don't get paid for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It looks like we could entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Excuse me, was there a second, Commissioner
Oh,
Green?
sorry. Did we have a
I'll
second?
second the motion.
Thank you.
Closing.
They're not all in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Apologies. So that brings us to discussion, or do we want to hear from
John,
the applicant again?
I'd like some clarification on the Monroe Boulevard 80-foot widening. Isn't it the city policy that anything, the developer is responsible for the local road standard, which is up to 60 feet, and beyond that, the city participates?
Yes.
And so the developer wouldn't be paying for installing this wide road because the city would be participating in it, correct?
Yes, and we told them that in the meeting we had last week.
Okay, I just wanted everyone to understand that's what happened, so.
Important clarification.
This is more of a broad question again with Monroe. The property east across the street, just pure landowner strategy. Is it just a little bit of a standoff? Who develops first? Who sinks all of the money into Monroe and the other side benefits from that?
So I can answer part of that. When the city had right-of-way acquisition funds, we purchased several sections of Monroe over time with public funds that we then turn over essentially for free for the construction cost of Monroe. And the Barker family sold to us portions of it, but kept portions of it private. So there are pieces that we would still have to buy. So it's like some and some. It's not really a standoff. It's more their desire to continue farming that land, but they also had the practical reality of selling a portion of it for Monroe's to be continued. And I wanted to similarly address Councilmember Settlemeyer's comment about whether Monroe is going to connect up to 2300 North or not. That'll totally depend on what happens on the property to the west. So by fire code, you can have 30 rooftops with a single access. So if the property to the west were to fail or inability to develop, Monroe would need to connect up to 2300 to provide multiple ways in and out in order to construct more than 30 homes on it. But if the development to the west goes first and 2200 is put in, then Monroe would only be necessary to be built on their property, essentially. You can't force the neighboring property owner to build. But it's just a function of where Monroe Boulevard is located, that a big portion of it's on the Randall property. Whether the property owner to the east develops or not, we don't know. They've been taking it down just in little chunks over time.
To clarify with the applicant, did you have a desire to come back up and address something? Okay. Is that okay if we do that now and then? Okay.
Thank you. And thank you all for your comments. And just to reiterate, we are certainly willing to work with all of the residents. You're welcome to talk to me after this. Email me. Always happy to answer any questions. Just wanted to talk about some of the concerns. One of the questions was about Widgeon Way going through. We will match the property owner to the west, and they've currently proposed a private road over there. In the previous proposal, they had a public road on that and we were matching it. We decided to shift that to the south. We felt like that was a bit more cohesive of a design. One of the comments about RE20, if it was still RE20, would we still need to put in Monroe? From what I understand, the answer is yes. One of the comments about city street standards, we will be building 2 city street standards, but they will be the private city street standards. So we'll make sure that we follow all the code on that. And then as far as the costs associated with Monroe Boulevard, it does take up about 2 acres of our site as well. And so we just wanted to reiterate, are we paying for the entire road all the way north? No, but it does affect our property just in terms of taking the size. So happy to answer any more questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So continuing discussion. I mean, I guess I'll speak and then you guys can continue. One, I think it's really, really wonderful that this proposal has shifted what it was proposing originally. We had higher, density, more units, and it's shifted to reflect resident feedback, which I think is really important. I've been an advocate for mixed housing types. I'm not for high density, but I am an advocate for little clusters within neighborhoods. I think it's really helpful to the community. I question the density that we keep piling in one location of the city. I think you guys know this, but essentially, I think that, the concerns about, dilapidation or like problems with these units are mediated when they're small clusters inside of neighborhoods. I like to think of the community lifespan of our children, ourselves, and the fact that we do need mixed housing types in our community. So personally, I like seeing something that's a bit mixed use like this. If this is exactly right or not, I would like to hear your thoughts. But anyway, I'll end there. But
Scott, have they, I guess, proposed a certain number of acres under the R4? Or is it?
No, it's just, so I wanted to address that a little bit. Clustering in zoning is something that's happened really since like the 1960s or 70s. And it's the idea that you take the total number of rooftops allowed per the underlying zoning, and then you orient those rooftops however you want to on the property or however as the city wants to. In this case, you'd get a portion of those rather than all being 5,000 square foot lots consistently. You get a portion of them as townhomes. So you get this central open space and green space. And I think that's what, if you were to put the 2 concepts side by side, and I don't want to lean on the Western property, but of one with kind of a mixed townhome and mixed housing unit size versus one that's just straight wall-to-wall fences and backyards. The second one, it just doesn't create open space. So clustering is an option for developing that. In this case, it would be development agreement based that would probably say it's R15 with a maximum number of units of connected townhomes to be, and then set that number with a minimum required open space, and we would do that calculation. So we wouldn't like triple or split zone the property. It would just be identified that way, similar to how West States was, which was an annexation of 21 plus or minus acres at 315 units, which slightly exceeded 15 units per acre. And then the difficulty from staff, one is that I got to inherit the general plan, so I didn't write it, so I can lean on it and say that it's difficult to read. So in 2015, when they put this together, if you read through the information, this is the Southtown neighborhood. It's just on the east side of the Southtown neighborhood, and references to clustering in the general plan are in each of the neighborhoods. And so the general plan states, to preserve rural character of neighborhoods, consider promoting clustering techniques in the zoning ordinance to encourage open space preservation. Single family development, no matter if it's R15, R18, R10, R12.5, does not create open space. They're perfectly legal, great subdivisions. We all live in many of those subdivisions that are single family, but you start getting 6-foot vinyl fences put between all the properties, and it might feel open when you walk out your back door because you've got a little, play area for your kids, but at the same time, it does not create open space. But the general plan it's a little bit hard to administer because you have recommendation for open space and also up to 6 units per acre. So I don't know where that line falls. you know, you can interpret it in several ways.
And this proposal, I think I heard you say 5.5 units per acre?
Yep.
Okay.
Trying to stay unbiased in this discussion. Obviously, I've been a part of it a while. I'm not a huge fan of the R4. I see the need, especially with Monroe there. I don't know that I would be open for moving forward with R4, because we had a community member mention that it does set precedents for the other side. And if you do look at the other side, there is R112 that is right there. And,
Right.
and you're setting an R4 precedence on one side of Monroe, so then you're going to set the precedence for the other side that would then back up to R12 and a half. So I would worry about future developments there. If we were to move it, I would say units 55 through 63, which are butting up to the Matlock property, which has been slated for R15. So if we're going to do clustering, those, in my opinion, would need to be R15 to match the mirrored property on the other side. And then the clustering would be internal to this own property.
Yeah, and to add on the setting of the precedent, that's a little bit of the conundrum we're in with the RE20 is there's a precedent around for smaller lot sizes, right? Where I'm gonna have a hard time holding it to an RE20 because of the precedent around, you know, the area. But then it falls back to the council member's previous comments where if we go R4, it's now the new precedent. So I think there's a balance there. I would have
We're not, their proposal isn't the whole property's R4.
Will you speak into the mic?
Oh,
Commissioner?
The proposal is not the whole property is R4.
I mean,
Just
I'm
the-
treating the typology of townhomes, just, you know, for reference and verbiage, and we can call a, you know, we can use attached and detached houses. You know, I know we're doing an average here. What I'm really getting at is it opens the door for that typology of wall to wall, 2-hour firewalls between units, things like that. And I would say it would have been, you know, a little interesting to see maybe clustering in which the townhomes were completely in the middle, all of them.
Yeah.
On the Monroe side
Surrounded-
and on the west.
Surrounded by a
Single
higher
family.
density,
But
or a
like the
lower density.
single family with that buffer to the interior with the multifamily, you know, partially they've kind of hugged it on the north and the south. I think it'd be interesting to see if I mean, I just don't know if we'd ever,
Yeah.
you know, go with it or not. You know, I don't know where my opinion lies, but, you know, along Monroe Boulevard, front yards, you know, whatnot facing Monroe, and then they have a street behind, which would be a rear entry, you know, garage, something like that. But I think it gets a little closer to me with the stacked unit, you know, side by side unit typology, but more in a center bar instead of single family to the south, single family to the north, and then this ribbon through of the multifamily stack. I don't know if I'm clear in my description, but
You're saying just both properties, in the middle here, like would be here is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's both developments would have gotten R4, but they would have been clustered in the middle, surrounded by.
But-
done a
Making
circumference of
yeah,
single
yeah.
family to force those new single family into the created open space.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I'd be able to palette a little bit more, you know, telling the nearby residents, hey, there's a buffer from everybody,
Mhm.
you know, to the
But we're-
multifamily.
past that at this point, I think, because.
Well, even on this property, you know, I kind of, if you just look at,
Oh,
if you even just look at the same idea on this property, you know, single family around with those units.
So you're
on the end,
saying-
just start swapping units and lots,
you're saying these,
continue, yeah. Cause sorry,
you're okay.
you know, down below here, if they stacked these here and here, single family there, I was kind of doing the rough.
Yeah, just
Kind of doing the rough math. They don't lose anything,
So units.
but there's a buffer.
You're saying units 36 through 51, an island, units 55 through 63, R15, units 24 through 35, R15.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if I would have just liked to have seen it, to have made seems like the idea was going to create this buffer around, but instead they kind of just did a center bar.
Right.
I think some of our comments, the developer could take back and relook at how he ends up putting his roads and his lots in. But what we're talking about right now is just the zoning change.
Correct.
So I don't think we're not approving this as a site plan,
Understood.
a subdivision for
But
this.
it's an exhibit that influences the decision to make
Yeah.
the
But he
zoning
could
call.
take some of our comments that we're making and
I think
massage that a bit.
I think for me tonight, I would like, I would do R15 with R18s on the end is what I know it's not what it is. That's not what he's proposing. That's what I would feel comfortable.
No, that's helpful to kind of get some consensus of where people stand. And we don't have to always vote in unison. But does anyone else have a different proposal? Yes, thank you.
I don't have a proposal, just a question for Scott. How many entitled R4 type lots do we have currently in the city right now?
Entitled to be built.
Yep. That we've already approved, been zoned approved.
I'm trying to think, I've got to take out the number that have been constructed, but I want to say 1,600. It's between 16 and 1,800 entitled. And some of those have been entitled for a really long time, like the 400 at Village of Prominence Point that were entitled in 2015. So every project has had a different timeline for coming out of the ground, but we have many townhomes entitled right now.
And of those 1,600, how many have been built?
Oh,
the
well, we have a number that have been built over time with our apartments and townhomes, but like Village of Prominence Point has built 3 24-plex buildings. There's the 50 on Terry Severing's property that are coming up out of the ground right now. Cooperstown 160 is going vertical at 1500 North and Washington Boulevard. And then the first 49 in phase 1 of West States is under construction today. And their phase 2 with the 143 will be coming in almost simultaneously. So they have the funding stack to bring them forward. So of that 1,800, you'll peel off a few hundred of them in the next probably 18 to 24 months being constructed.
I think that the ends of our table we've kind of made ourselves pretty just like maybe transparent on what we're thinking, because I find this to be a somewhat reasonable proposal that I haven't been convinced by what I do think was but wonderful, clear and awesome resident feedback. I think that we did receive the reduction that the residents needed. And so to me, it feels like this is somewhat palatable. But I mean, I definitely would be open to like maybe some more reductions in terms of this proposal. I know you're on the opposite end. So I guess just looking at you three, one of us could make a motion and we could go to voting, or do we have any other, sometimes we've been able to craft like, well, what if we propose this as a recommendation?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I mean, I think even duplex is, again, we're using exhibits for the vote. But I even think I design a lot of townhomes, and when you start pinching the interior units, you get windows front and back, right? And that's what starts to make it feel less and less single family residential. The long units and everyone's real original, myself included, 20-foot unit, we'll paint it red, 20-foot unit, we'll switch the siding and do something else, right? And it becomes these long things. So I could even go for the averaging, just not, even though we're not basing it off the exhibit's there in front of me and I'm seeing, more or less row houses, townhouses. If it was 2-3 single family lots and a duplex and then a single family lot and then 2 or 3 duplexes, shared driveways, things that start to be more of a hybrid typology between single family and multifamily, even I could start entertaining it, but I don't think I'm getting there on this one.
Okay. Any other feedback, or do we want to propose? I think Commissioner Settlemeyer, you were proposing R15 potentially.
Yeah, R15 with just R18 on the ends. So we're, in this case, units 78 through 82. And then I mentioned it during to the builder earlier, units 1 through 7, convert those from R15 to R18.
I think we should have a discussion because I don't want to make a vote that they don't want to enter, even want us to do.
So
Just a question, procedural question. The question is, for us is an application to consider rezoning the property from RE20 to R15, R14. Do we need to have a decision on that specific question, John? And then entertain at another meeting, or have the developer come back if they want to try to entertain something else? All R15 with no R14, R15, R18 combined, or can we, what's the proper procedure on that?
So the way it typically works is, the developers ask for a recommendation from the planning commission to the council. And so the planning commission would either say yes to the recommendation or no with conditions. And so if the decision was to not push forward what they've asked for, then it would be a no with these conditions that the council could consider. And then the developer could decide whether to come back to this group and talk some more to look for a favorable recommendation on what they're asking, or they could go to the council and do the work there. So that answer the question.
So what I'm hearing from commission then is from Commissioner Settlemeyer, you're suggesting R18, R15 combination in some mix. Is that correct?
No with that recommendation.
No with that.
A
yeah,
no with this recommendation.
correct. That's how.
And then suggesting to council, is that how we would do it, John? That they consider an R18, R15 combination?
Yeah, that's typically the way it is. So you would respond yes or no on their request. And if it's a no, you could add, or a yes, either way, you could add conditions that the council should consider.
Okay.
So we could do so, unless there's other thoughts. And again, my intention here is just thinking, we want to put city possible. And I think that is a complicated question as to what that is, as these fine folks have articulated. I just think that townhomes pocketed in neighborhoods is, in my opinion, much safer, less crime, less problems, less, so that's essentially where my positioning comes from, is I think that, and I think higher up on the mountain should have tiny little pockets, because it isn't fair that only these residents are impacted, et cetera. But anyway, but if you want to go ahead with that, because it doesn't sound like I have anyone else on that team, so let's proceed with.
I know the developer did ask that he might come back up. I don't know if we want to entertain that or just.
If you're feeling pretty solid, unless something he's going to say is going to sway anybody. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's do it.
I just wanted to clarify. We recently made a new design and realized that on this design, Monroe does not line up properly with where it's planned to go to the south. So those lots at the bottom, like at least 1 through 4, maybe even 1 through 5, are just going to get wiped out. Monroe's going to move over. So I think
Moving west or east?
Monroe will be further west. It doesn't butt up to the church like it's shown on this design.
So it would just be
Yeah.
dead space then
Yeah.
between the house and the
We'll
road?
probably have detention down there. So it'll probably be Monroe, and then there's some dead space that we can maybe use for detention, but there won't be homes down there. And I'm just bringing this up because you were suggesting doing R18 down there. There's probably not going to be any units.
Okay.
So I think
And this-
what we would propose is if you're not comfortable with doing any attached units, maybe just do R15 on the whole thing. Or maybe put a cap on the attached units at 25 or something that's a little bit lower.
Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah, that's an option too.
I would probably vote for an R15,
I would feel more comfortable with R15 as well.
especially with the buffer of Monroe, kind of with the detention pond there. It's a gradient.
Yeah. It would give that neighbor there a nice buffer between them and the road. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'd be okay with an R15, I think, I mean, based on that. The only, yeah. We are, just because of, again, the Matlock property, the top units are going to be R18, but then it would step down to R15, but then we could, on the other side of Monroe, would just continue
Mhm.
or potentially.
Yeah,
continue
and I'm more
R5.
comfortable with that than trying to add in the R18
Yeah.
just for, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a
So,
little,
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think it's a little bit, I think it's almost like we're the arbiters here between what happened with the neighbors and that, and the developer. I don't know if everyone's going to be happy or not, but I think everyone's efforts weren't in vain.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing I would say with the R15 is to ensure that they can do the 2 stories to create as much yard space. So I know that's part of what we're voting on, but
But that would be the development agreement, correct? That would go to, that'd be city council
Mhm.
handling that piece.
Yeah,
right?
but we can add recommendations like that for city council to be mindful of in case it is overlooked or.
and with R15, do we want to address anything about a recommendation on private streets? I don't have much heartburn on the private streets. Hey, less for the city to deal with. If the fire marshal signs off on it, and he feels like his firefighters are safe. I deal with the fire departments a lot, and they usually push back pretty dang hard when it doesn't suit their engine or their safety. So
And I think this property has some unique issues with the canal that they may end up having to put a wider street just to handle the canal and the utilities on that relocation. So it may all not be private as much as they're proposing, so.
yeah.
Any
So a
motion?
potential motion might look like deny the request as it is with the suggestion to council to consider R15 for the entire property
Mhm.
and to address the 2-story so that we have more yard, right? So it's not, doesn't have to spread out so much. So is that what that's what I'm hearing. Is that what we're thinking?
That was you.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
Is that a motion?
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm
I think that's-
coalescing everything that's
sounds
being
good.
said. Okay, then I'll move then that we deny the legislative application we
Rezone.
recommend council deny it. That's what we're doing, correct? Yeah, we're recommending that council deny the legislative rezone from RE20 to R15 and R14, recommending that council consider approving an all R15 zone while looking at the height of the buildings to encourage some verticality versus sprawl for more that open space feel and the private road considerations.
All right, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we will move to a vote. Commissioner Gardner.
So we are denying it, so
You're voting to deny it
Yes.
with the recommendation. Okay, yeah. So you're voting to deny with the recommendation.
No.
Yeah. So, so you're a yes, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemyer,
Yes.
and I will vote yes on that. Okay, that.
So it's a yes to the.
That moves us to item number 10, which I know we've been here for about 2.5 hours. I'm assuming though this has been noticed as a public hearing, so we need to continue, correct? Does anyone on the commission need a quick break, or do you guys want to just push through and get this done?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
A 5-minute break?
Uh,
Okay.
Move to saunter.
Okay, let's do a 5-minute break and we will reconvene in 5 minutes. We will be starting on item number 10. Okay, do we have, we're still missing Commissioner.
He had to leave.
Oh, he's exited. Okay. Okay, we are going to get started. So we just ask that any conversations can maybe move into the hallway for us. Thank you so much. We are now on item 10, which is a public hearing consideration and recommendation on a legislative amendment to consider amending the North Ogden Code Title 11-9 Residential and Civic Zones to add an overlay zone as defined in Utah State Code 10-9A 403.2, affordable home ownership density bonus for single-family residential units. And our presenter tonight is Scott Hess, our Community and Economic Development Director.
Okay, thank you. Similarly, in November, this came on an agenda that had a really long public hearing. And so we don't mean to keep bringing this back on nights that have really long public hearings, but it's just when we put it on the agenda. So state code, as we've talked about in here quite a bit, has the moderate income housing plan element. And that's been for over 10 years. In the last few years, the state legislature has gotten much more serious about it and has started creating carrots and sticks approached for cities that are not doing moderate income housing. And I believe North Ogden has done a really good job of its fair share of a variety of housing units and types, the majority being on the southwest side of the city, which is, neither here nor there. I mean, I have my personal feelings. The city has approved them. I think that it would be best personally to mix those into other neighborhoods. But generally, we have approved lots of different types of housing. The state has an annual review and then update of the moderate income housing plan each year. That's onerous. It takes a bunch of time. You have to pull a bunch of reports. And they've provided in state code, if you adopt this home ownership density bonus overlay zone, it's an automatic pass for your moderate income housing plan. It has, the elements are specifically, you have a developer would come in and suggest a development that is 60% of the total single-family residential units be deed restricted to owner occupancy for at least 5 years. That's something that we've negotiated back and forth with several developments. The highest that we've been able to get is 20%. And so this would require 60% of them home ownership or deed restricted. At least 25% of total single-family residential units qualify as affordable housing. So in this case, it would be 120%. It would be affordable to a family that makes 120% of the area median income. So that's, you could back out the numbers depending on interest rates, but that puts the homes at between $450,000 and $500,000. And then 25% of the single-family residential units be no larger than 1,600 square feet. And in talking with our city attorney, we believe you could make it and the applicant creates a preferential qualifying buyer program in which single-family residential unit is offered for sale initially for 30 days to a category of preferred qualifying buyers. And that's your teachers, public safety folks, anybody, municipal government employees. So you'd have a preferential buying program. I think the reality of this is that you would put the zone out there and you would offer it to the private developers and say, meet all of these standards and we will rezone or do a doubling of density, which would be like RE20 to R110 or R110 to R15, but you have to meet these requirements. And I don't know that there's land inexpensive enough in North Ogden for them to be able to do it. So it's kind of a zone that we would offer. We would meet the state requirement. There's similar cities, Kaysville City passed this and nobody has taken them up on it again, because land values are high enough that in speaking to their community development director, land values are high, so high that nobody can purchase it, do the rezone and meet all of the requirements in the zone. So it's not to pass a zone that is not useful, but it's to meet the state's intent of trying to provide moderate income housing and then let the development community, the private sector, step up and see if they can kind of correct this issue and not put it in the laps of the city to create moderate income housing. So with that, staff's suggestion is to review this, consider whether or not it's a positive for the community. For staff, it certainly would make adoption and the reporting of the moderate income housing portion easier, and we would be state compliant with making those efforts in moderate income housing. But it's really up to the planning commission what you'd like to see in your city and what we think this would do with future developments.
I have a clarification question on the doubling. It's been a few days since I reviewed this. I'm just trying to remember how that if we have like an R14, for example, there's just no overlay, correct? There's nothing like
Right.
just to waylay any fears that it gets more dense. Okay,
Correct.
that's not happening. Okay, thank you.
So the maximum we're suggesting is down to 4,500 square foot lots, which is R15.
Okay.
And so in the instance of the rezones that we've heard recently, the city could say, follow this ordinance. And by this ordinance, you can get an R15 style development with a certain number of the homes being affordable, a certain number being less than up to 1,600 square feet. You have to do qualified preferential and you have to do home ownership deed restricted. And based on the proposals that have come in, the last three, the annexation and the two rezones, I'm not certain that that proposal would be able to pencil for any of the developments. I can't say that, I'm not on the developer side, but if it were possible, I think that's what they would be proposing.
So it has to be R110, sorry, I didn't mean this.
It's,
Yeah. It has to be R110 and above, or can R18, I mean.
I think we would.
Half of R18 it would be too small, correct?
Yes, and in looking at how would you incentivize the use of this? So the incentive would be, we will increase your density. But you have to, in order to get the increase in density, you have to provide for actual moderate income housing. So we could eliminate the doubling of density, but say you can go down to, and then it's like an R15 style, down to 9 units an acre, which is about what you end up with at 5,000 square foot units. So that was just it's an easy way to calculate, well, we'll double your density. But I was looking back through the rezone folder and the number of properties that exist in North Ogden today that are R15, R18, R110, R12 and a half, that all began as an RE20 zone over the last, I don't know, 12 years of files that I have, is almost all of them. So RE20 is kind of a standard holding zone. The number of properties that get constructed in, developed in half acre lots is very, very few. But Legacy North, Legacy, Northwood Hills, which is 2,600 north and going east towards Mountain Road, that was RE20. Ward Farms, Fernwood, Quail Ponds, those all started as RE20. So they all had a massive density increase if you consider a half acre down to 8,000 square foot lots, with really no benefit to the city of providing affordable housing or open space or any other true benefit, I guess.
So the affordable housing, you mentioned that's 100, did you say 120% of the area median income?
Yeah.
Why go above? Is that something that the state is setting, or?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense to me to go 120 versus 80 or 100.
They're calling it attainable housing.
Thank you.
But it is part of the moderate income housing plan. The idea is that there are groups who are, for lack of a better word, occupying the affordable homes, the really cheap stuff, because they can't get into the next size up. So this would give them a step out of.
It's just labeled as affordable. That's why I was confused. Instead of attainable.
It's the way the state code is written. I should call it attainable housing. I think affordable, it qualifies it as something a little bit like low income housing tech credits or something like that. But it uses 120% of area median income. And I believe, John, that would be for the county. Is that correct? Not the city.
Yeah, county.
So this, if I understand you correctly, this wouldn't allow any townhomes. It would just be single family detached.
That's what we would propose. And yep.
And the code specifically actually wants detached. That's what they're after.
Okay. And then could they add development agreements on top of this after and try to get a development agreement to get additional things for their developments if they use this?
Well, that's, the legislative process is interesting, right? Because the council has really broad latitude in what they choose to do, including development agreements. From a staff standpoint, if we created a policy like this, we would leave it, we would suggest the council say, this is what you can get if you want to go down to R15. Like, this is how you get to a pathway to R15. And then it would create assurance for the city and the rezones. Not every project would be a contract negotiation. It would be, we recommend for so many years, this is what it is, and let the private market, private sector decide whether or not they can provide that kind of housing.
My opinion is if we're going to give them this concessions, then that we say that they can't then add on additional development agreements would be my thought. I don't know if that's something that's possible to be done.
And so, and just doing a quick calculation. So the area median income in Weber County is $90,000. So if you take it at just $90,000 at a 6% interest, even with a 20% down payment, you can afford $1,800 to $2,100 a month, which is a mortgage of $300,000 to $370,000, which I can check Utah Real Estate or the MLS right now, but I would bet the number of homes under $370,000 in North Ogden is very, very few, especially single family.
I have some of those numbers written down over here already.
Any other questions for?
Scott, if this went forward, and does this bypass the need for anything coming to the planning commission for reason? They still would come in a standard rezone.
So the way it would work, sorry, John.
So there would be some entitlement that they would be, that the rezone would still come before you, but it would almost be more administrative
You
and
just
less.
have to stamp it.
Well, and there'd still be the subdivision process that they'd have to go through and
Okay.
the review of everything like that.
All right.
I know private roads have been mentioned many times through all this process. Does it make them conform to private roads, public roads? Does it have any say into that?
So it doesn't, and the private road standard is permitted per our code based on recommendations from the city engineer and the fire marshal. And in looking at other projects, and again, precedent setting, or you can just look at them as examples. Village at Prominence Point has 121 townhomes, all on private road network, that are 26 feet wide. So there's no on-street parking at all. It's all limited to driveway parking or the few guest parking spots they have. And it's kind of an interesting thing when it's a pocket, a large development, like all of West States is on a private road network. But when we put it in single family homes, it just feels different, right? But it wouldn't change that, because that's an administrative option, basically, or an administrative decision you make.
Okay, if there are no more questions, okay, we're going to go ahead and open up a public hearing on this item.
Chris Remkus, North Ogden resident. I assume I can speak twice.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I cut myself short on time last time just because I got nervous. So thank you for the opportunity to practice my public speaking, my eye contact, and civil service here. One thing I don't like about this is it feels like it removes the public input from this. If there are entitlements from taking the zoning down to another one and just a blanket coverage. So that does concern me. I'd find it interesting too, when we do these comparisons on how much you make versus these percentages. 20% on a $450,000 home takes a lot to get there. So even when we're saying they're going to be affordable, they do get to be problematic. It's a big decision, I think, that needs to be looked and reviewed even further than tonight. I know it's come to be late, but if I were in your position, I'd want to review it further before I made a firm decision. Mindy gave us some excerpts from the code, and it seems there's another portion where you can choose 3 of another section, not just the blanket R15 zoning. And one of those 3 subcategories is you can get infrastructure up to your developments before you build your developments. That's as an incentive as well for the attainable housing stuff, which I've been a big proponent of, not getting the cart before the horse. We talked with the developer on the Randall property, and they said, we're going to take care of all the stormwater on the site. Yes, you are on your site. And then what happens to it downstream from there? My concern with our developments is that the downstream receiving portions of stormwater and everything else are not proportionate to the developments. So I would consider reviewing the code thoroughly and seeing if maybe an option of 3 is better than just a blanket R15. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate Previson, North Ogden resident. I guess my biggest concern is when you give a blanket of it provides a lot of freedom. And my biggest concern is what it looks like when land does become affordable. So this is out there and maybe we hit a recession. Something happens where land goes down and then it's out there and it can be done everywhere. So that's kind of a concern I'm looking at. It does seem like we might, I don't know, whoever you listen to, but we might be hitting a point soon where a lot of people aren't being able to afford things and there might be a drop in price. So that's something I think about. And I just worry that it's, again, taking out our voices. It's our community. It's what we care about. We've put in hours and time and so much care into our thought process of this community and our connection with people. And we left high density to come to a lower density area for our mental health, well-being, safety, comfort, not having to like wait so much as far as like in line at the grocery store. I don't know if you've been at Smith's on a weekend, you know, the line goes all the way back into the middle aisle, post office on a weekend, lines to the door. So just consider these things as you're moving towards developments. We're not against it, but like he mentioned before me, our infrastructure, not just in our water and more natural resources, but just as a community, we're already feeling the burden of our time being drained in other areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any raised hands online? No.
Brent Call, North Ogden resident. I really appreciate that explanation, Scott. That put a lot of light on it. But I was trying to research this question in some detail, and I had a hard time because the state code is not in 11-9Z 403.2. It was in 10-9A-403.2. But in September, it was transferred or moved to 10-21-401. And so I had a very difficult time really digging into this and trying to find it. I wanted to, you know, get it in context with the rest of the state code. I do have a little bit of concern. I like I say, I appreciate the explanation. And I agree that based on current economic conditions, you're probably not going to get a developer come in and be able to do this. But we are opening the door to a little bit of Russian roulette here, that if somebody were able to do that, is it really what we want to be able to happen? And what happens when the economic circumstances change down the road? As was mentioned, property values, land values go down. Do we have the opportunity to change this down the road and withdraw it? And I don't want to get on my soapbox about the state government's imposition of the affordable housing things that they've done. I think it's very wrong that they're trying to force this down on cities and communities to solve what is really a state issue. But I like I say, I don't want to get on my soapbox about that. So I guess I'm a little mixed feelings about this right now. It sounds like a good idea. I understand the onerous requirements of trying to satisfy the state's reporting. I deal with the federal government on a regular basis in my business, and there's a lot of onerous reporting that has to take place. And it is very difficult. It takes a lot of staff time to put those things together. And, this would alleviate a lot of that. But we've done a good job, as has been stated, with our affordable housing plan, being able to meet the state requirements. So, like I say, I've got some real mixed feelings. Is it worth the risk? Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Hello, I'm Allison Anderson. I'm a North Ogden resident as well. I just wanted to bring up a couple things on this. This seems to undermine the work that we've been doing as like a community and with you guys for the last 4 months on other properties. Like it prevents that public hearing piece. So I'm going to echo and say agree with previous comments that were made. I also think it kind of removes like the checks and balances of the public working with city government. Because then, like was mentioned earlier, it kind of gives an entitlement for that. And there are 28 other options that are available to be picked from. So maybe we should consider those 28 other options and see if there's something better that allows us to have the benefits that Scott talked about for the city, but also give us a little bit more control in what we pick and choose for what belongs here in North Ogden. So thank you.
thank you.
Mindy Albee, excuse me, should have brought my water. North Ogden still. Higher density housing is great when it's done proactively and in the right direction. Let me give you some reasons why you should reject this proposed overlay zone. In the first place, it proposes double density for any developer who wanted twice the density. Listen to these words directly from the staff report. Staff would suggest incentivizing this overlay by permitting a doubling of the underlying zoning density down to a minimum lot size of 4,500 square feet. I don't know what to say. I don't know a single North Ogden resident who would support that sort of rule. The city council can already grant any zoning density it wants and impose any of the affordable housing conditions of approval the city council thinks are appropriate. We saw that again last week when, in absence of any zoning overlay, the city council debated the inclusion of affordable housing requirements in the Atkinson-Pauling development agreement. Creating an overlay zone would not increase the city council's powers to trade density for affordable housing. The city council can already impose affordable housing requirements in exchange for density without having a zoning overlay. The city can already take into account affordable housing, owner occupancy, house size, and preferred buyer programs. So if the city council can already do that, why did the neighbors oppose the overlay? The neighbors are opposed to it because it would make R110 districts act like R15 districts without the developer going through the regular rezoning process. One, on its face, the overlay district that staff is proposing would allow any zoning category to have any density. Think about that. It contemplates RE20 with an unknown number of units per acre. This is not a step to take lightly. If you are going to change the density, then change the zone. Point two, a density overlay would effectively change a parcel zoning category without creating a zoning case. If citizens understand anything about zoning, they at least know what a rezoning case is. But overlay districts and similar complications, especially unnecessary ones like this one, that accomplish nothing except muting citizen involvement and influence, are bad. Good government requires that citizens readily know that what their legislature is doing so they can communicate on even ground with words with fixed meanings. 3, the foundation of zoning is that the name of the zone tells you the density allowed, which sets the expectations of the community. Having a zoning overlay dilutes the fundamental discipline of zoning districts. Plainness in the rules is essential to meaningful citizen understanding and input. You do not create overlay districts that allow an R18 parcel to have an R15 density. Instead, you create the parcel to be R15 in the first place in an open and non-confusing process. Point 4, if you don't think that overlay districts impede citizen input to the planning process, think back to the recent Matlock meeting where even relatively sophisticated people were confusing R4 with R14. Is there anyone making decisions tonight or trying to argue this Randall case who would confidently explain the differences between R14, R18, R18A, R18AG, RRC, MPC, or PAD? It's already confusing enough. We don't need a zoning overlay to act like an R14, to make an R15 act like an R4. If it's going to be an R4, then let's have a zoning hearing about it, whether it should be an R4. But perhaps worst of all, overlay districts give developers a second bite at the apple. For example, the neighborhoods just spent hundreds and hundreds of hours working on the Atkinson-Pauling zoning request and settled on a compromise of R18 with inadequate streets. I cannot tell you how wrong and unfair and bad government it would feel to me and my neighbors for the city to immediately turn around and create a new process that would allow that same developer to now come back and request a density overlay that would make that parcel equal to R15 or worse. If he wants more density, he should have to resubmit and put in a new zoning application and ask for R15. Point 6, neighborhoods have already had huge unfair disadvantage in the zoning process without making it more complicated for no reason. The whole rezoning world is foreign to us. Don't make it worse by ignoring the work we have done for months by creating R18 that is really an R15. In conclusion, a density overlay would be a drastic weakening of the entire North Ogden residential zoning code. And contrary to the suggestions of the staff report, North Ogden does not need to do that for the moderate income housing report. Before considering any proposal this threatening to North Ogden's residents, you and we should carefully pursue the 28 other alternative tools that the state encourages cities to consider for affordable housing. Here is a list of the 28 alternatives.
And we are at time, is that correct? I'm just, let me verify too, you're finding, yeah, okay, yes, please finish your last sentence.
Okay. This list is full of better options than what is being proposed tonight. Let's have a meeting about pursuing one of these options. I regret that this important item is not getting more time for the neighbors to digest. Thank you.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. With that public hearing closed, we can move to consideration and discussion. Scott, can we ask just, I guess, a quick question in light of some of the things we might be wondering at this point? Is there a reason that this particular strategy was selected as opposed to some of these alternatives that the public is hearkening to?
So in our current moderate income housing plan, which is compliant, the 3 goals that we chose were A, rezone for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. E, create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones. G, amend land use regulations to allow for higher density or new moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors. And then we had 2 others. J, implement zoning incentives for moderate income units in new developments. And L, reduce, waive, or eliminate impact fees related to moderate income housing. And we've had those 5 strategies adopted since 2022 and have been reported on each year for the state regarding the progress that we've made on them. So those are, you have your menu items. And if you have to have 3. Every city over a certain size has to have 3. And if you have, there's benefits to having additional as far as priority for state funding, but we were able to do the 3 and report on those. If you're not compliant on at least 3 of those, you run the risk of losing your state B and C road funds, which for North Ogden City, that's essentially our road overlays and our entire sidewalk budget, which is about $1 million annually. And this is like strategy on the side, right? That was given to us as an option in 2025 to give you an automatic approval of your moderate income housing plan. So it doesn't take away those other 3 menu items that we chose through a legislative process in 2022. It just adds one additional tool for the city to look at. And the 4,500 square foot lots, that's what's currently permitted in R15. So in R15 on an interior lot, you can go down to 55 feet wide and 4,500 square feet. There are 5,400 square feet on the corner or 5,500 square feet on corners. So it's not like, it would basically be our R15 zone. So if you want to get to R15, if you're already in an RE20, R18, R110, or any of the other residential zones, that's how you would apply the overlay zone, is you'd have to meet all these other requirements. And I have one more, that was a really long answer, but I have one more piece of just context. So this year, we had over 1,000 bills filed at the state legislature. So we're still in the session. We've got a little bit of time left in it. But it's the most bills filed historically ever in one year. And one of them has failed in committee, but I think will likely come back. It was Representative Ward, and it was called Small Lots and Starter Home Amendments, House Bill 184, major opposition from cities. But this talks about could have starter homes, mean single family residential units that are built on a lot of any size without meeting a minimum number of livable square feet with any floor area ratio, meaning that they could cover the entire lot, with no setbacks on a lot with at least 35 feet of street frontage. So these are the types of state codes that are being, oh, my 5 minutes is up.
Sorry.
But these are the kinds of state codes that are being proposed by state legislators to be imposed on cities who aren't attempting to do something about moderate income housing. So I think that it's one of those things that we want to stay away from mandates. We want to show that we're being proactive. We want to be a community that's on the side of moderate income housing that says we're trying to produce, quality, affordable or attainable homes without the state legislature coming in and usurping local land use control, which isn't, it's certainly possible. And it's not only possible, there are bills being filed to do it right now actively. And so it's a risk, I guess. And it's not saying that we have to pass this, but this is another tool that we would have at our disposal. And we can craft it in many different ways. And I can I can send additional Utah League of Cities and Towns resources forward. We can, continue this and continue to talk about it. But if the cities aren't doing something proactive, my guess is the state legislature will step in and take over some of the land use control to create affordable housing for us.
Thank you.
If this passes, do we still have to report on the other 3 or 5?
No, not currently. It would be like an automatic green light. You've passed your moderate income housing plan.
And if we pass this and the House bill got passed, which one takes precedence?
The new state code would at that point. So it's still in flux, right? We're just trying to be responsive. So a state code changes every year. Last year, we're going to be several hundred laws safer this year than we were last year. But the land use realm, Title 10, and thank you for calling out my 11 instead of 10, but it's changed dramatically in the last 15 years. The municipal code at the state level used to be short and easy to read, and it's becoming longer and convoluted and more onerous for cities to administer. And one legacy planner named Wilf Summercorn called it the City Planner Full Employment Act, is what the state legislature does each year, because we have to watch these bills and then amend our codes to be compliant. So Councilmember Settlemyer, it would be whatever the current law of today is. Once it passes, would be what rules.
What's the timing on our need to get a decision on this, Scott?
Not immediate. We have time.
So I frankly would like more time to look at this and delve more deeply into it and try to understand it better. With that, I'd make a motion that we postpone this to our next planning commission meeting. Give us a couple more weeks to dig into this as commissioners. And I'm not comfortable making a decision right now.
And
Laura,
Count-
you thinking different?
would you be willing to amend the motion to postpone to a future date? Because right now we don't have any items on March 18th, and given the lengthy agendas, a canceled meeting wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, postpone to a future date, then I'll amend my motion.
I would second that. I do have another question for Scott
Yeah.
though, before we,
That would be fine. Go ahead.
how many staff hours would it save? I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't know, it takes 4 departments to do it. So 100 staff hours, probably across business licensing, building permit, 2 planners. We have the finance director often weigh in on items in this. So, and then not only that, all of your time, council's time.
Right.
So
Is
just
that-
probably like 100
Well,
staff hours
Is that on an annual
Mhm.
basis? Okay.
for the reporting.
And
Mhm.
we do have a motion and a second on the table. Clarification on that. Does this mean there would be another public hearing or no? My understanding, right, is we're only talking about the planning commission's recommendation at the future meeting.
Yep, and holding by state code, you've held the notice to public hearing. So as it
We're
goes forward,
okay.
you wouldn't be required to have a noticed public hearing. It would be noticed on the meeting itself
Right, but it
anyways.
wouldn't be, we would come back for recommendation.
And obviously the commission can allow people to speak as well. I mean,
Right. Oh. 5 minutes.
that was
minutes.
not 5 minutes.
I gotta
So-
get this turned on.
Should we consider taking a vote then to move forward on I think we have a motion on the table that needs addressed as a vote, if that's okay. Is anything else super pressing?
Vote on it, can amend the motion.
Yeah, I think move to a vote, but did you have pressing questions you wanted answered at this one? Okay, so let's move to a vote on the idea of moving this forward to a future meeting. So Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Settlemeyer.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So that moves us past item number 10 and takes us to item number 11, which is public comments for items that were, I guess, essentially not on the agenda or all of the above. So public comment period again.
Hi, is it on? I'm Mindy Albee from North Ogden. I just was wondering if the development agreement for the Atkinson Pauling proposal has been signed yet.
The developer has signed it. I don't think council signed it yet, or the mayor has.
Okay, and then nope, that was on the agenda. I can't talk about it. Sorry. Thank you.
Well, you can, I mean, is it an item on our agenda tonight? And so you were thinking you couldn't talk about it? If it's something really quick, that's okay. Go ahead. You're here tonight. You waited through the 3.5 meeting. So yeah, if
We
it's
have not-
quick, make it, yeah.
This is so fun,
Okay,
right?
go ahead.
So let's say there is a development agreement that has already been signed on a previous parcel, and then this goes into effect. Can a developer change their mind and say, oh, I'd actually like to use the overlay and not do the development agreement?
Yeah, they could. So they could unwind their development agreement and they have an entitlement, much like, so you take the manufacturing rezone tonight.
Mhm.
So they are still entitled at manufacturing. And we have this recommendation to go commercial. They could pull that at any point. But there's kind of like I would call it almost tie goes to the runner. Utah state is very pro property rights. So if there was a development agreement and they chose to unwind it and go a different direction, that's an administrative process that the city has as an option, they could do that.
But wouldn't the city have to agree to it because the city is also party to it? Could the city say, actually, no, our residents spent 4 months sorting through this and we had, 400 people show up to debate this issue. We, as the city, being party to that agreement, we want to hold you to it.
I haven't had anybody ever pull a development agreement without trying to amend it into another option.
I think technically, they could basically apply through a rezone, and if that state code or city code didn't require a formal process, then they could just go into it, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are severability clauses in there, so they would have options to pull out.
Okay, because that's the heartburn that a lot of residents are feeling with that overlay.
I think that's a good
Okay.
thing for
Okay.
consideration.
you.
Thank you. Okay.
Kate Previson, North Ogden resident. Really briefly, infrastructure, would love to see more hiking trails. I think we only have one in North Ogden, south of the North Ogden Divide. Nature Center is like just south of our border, but we just have the one and it's where all the dump material are. And would love to see that with the increase in density that we're seeing. That parking lot is really small and I just see our natural space needing more access. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to just, Brent Call, sorry. I'd like to just address a little bit more in detail the question of private streets versus public roads. As I mentioned, I did send you guys some research that I've done, and I hope you take the time to read that. But just in summary, the private roads in small developments like we're looking at here, or like the Pauline Atkinson property, research has shown that when those are the only reason for an HOA, that over time, that results in a less desirable and less valuable development, that the property values become devalued because of that. They actually increase value when in a large development, probably similar to like Prominence Point, where the homeowners association is also responsible for much more than just the roads, such as clubhouses and landscaping and other things like that. So I understand the appeal that they have for the city to not have to pay for those roads and not have to plow them. But in small developments like we're talking about, they result in degradation. They don't create the value. And so I just encourage you guys to read that. I also sent that to the city council, and take a closer look at that. And don't just consider the economic value at the front end, but what does it do long-term for the city? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move to item number 12, which is remarks from planning commissioners. I just have one question, Scott, and it can be a brief answer. I don't expect tons of details, but just, I know we've talked several times through the last couple years about general plan updates. Did we have like some ballpark time frame we're looking at on those? I know you're like Nisa, seriously.
I'll answer it for you.
Yeah.
I expect substantial discussion this year.
Okay.
If we can get the language done this year, that'd be great, but we have a lot
At
on
least-
your plate this year too,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, okay, starting. Okay, awesome. Any other remarks?
In general plan, is that where we would talk about the trail system that was brought up?
That is one piece of the general plan, yes. Okay, so we are going to move to our report from our Community and Economic Development Director, Mr. Hess.
Spoken plenty. I don't have anything more.
And that brings us to remarks from our city manager and attorney.
I think what Scott was trying to say is he doesn't have a voice anymore, but
Okay.
no, I don't have anything other than thanks for the work you do and considering all the opinions in the room. It's not an easy job, but it is fun.
Okay, that brings us to entertaining an emotion for adjournment.
A motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay.